citizens are grateful for the many blessings we have to gather as a community and to discuss the financial affairs and the other affairs that are on our agenda for this evening. We invite thy spirit here, Father, that we may make rational and prudent decisions that will reflect the needs of Payson City. Heavenly Father, we ask to bless the events around the world, that peace may find its way through the doors of Ukraine and Russia, that the world may be stable, that we may learn to get along. To this end, Heavenly Father, we acknowledge thy hand in all things that are good in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. We stand.
Flag.
Yeah, it's right there. See it?
There it is.
Repeat the pledge with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you to Council Christensen and Council Prosgaard for opening the meeting for us. Today is a special council meeting, March 30th, 2022. And the time is, well, I've got on my watch 10 after 5, so we'll go ahead and call it to order. We've done the declare and pledge action items, resolution, state purchase contract for building located on 40 South Main Street. Dave?
Mayor and Council, we talked about this in the past. We've got funding from the grant, and we'd like to proceed forward with purchasing the old Christensen building, 40 South Main from Ashley Guy. And so this is a motion to approve the real estate purchase contract and authorize the mayor to sign whatever documents to close on the property. The grant's going to pay the bulk, 500,000. The other amount, which is the appraised value, 890, is the appraised value. That the balance will be paid. We pay interest payments for 1 year and then interest payment and the balloon payment at the end of 2 years. That gives us time to look at some other investors to try to get the building and get it remodeled. So that's the plan.
One of the cornerstones of what we want to do down there, so I'd encourage us to do that.
Just to make me feel calm about this, we do have, Brian, we do have people that are making plans to make a plan to make it work.
We're working on it, and also MTech is very interested in doing something.
That's who I was thinking of. Who was he thinking of?
Just anybody.
Oh,
Private
Anybody?
investors
Oh,
above and
okay.
beyond. Right?
Anybody that wants to
Alright.
spend money.
yeah.
That's one of the
Ooh, I
things
like
we
to
had.
spend money. Can I spend yours?
That's one of the things we had talked to Win Jean-Paul that does some of our consulting is that's his next step, is to find investors and things like that to make this a reality.
And we've talked to some of those sometime back at Park, the Park City people and others.
UVU.
Yeah, UVU and in fact, and like Brian said, MTech, we took them on a tour and they had to, and it's been said before, they had to cut out the culinary because of some restrictions they had budgetary wise, looking for a place to do it, and this would make perfect sense.
Okay. What do we need a motion?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, to approve this real estate purchase contract.
I'll make a motion to approve the real estate purchase contract for the building located at 40 South Main Street and American signing documents with that.
So moved.
Okay, that motion has been seconded. Roll call vote, starting with Council Hyde on the Zoom.
Yes.
Council Carter,
Yes.
Council Prosgaard,
Yes.
Council Hewlett,
Yes.
Council Christensen.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to C, the work sets and annexation and serviceability. Robert?
All righty, so. Bear with me just 1 second. There we go. So tonight we wanted to just have a little work session with all of you and listen a lot. Ask a few questions, listen a lot, kind of bring you up to speed on what's kind of going on in our city, things like that. Feel free to jump in as we go through this, and then hopefully we'll have lots of discussion as we go through this. So maybe just to talk about some things that we want to accomplish tonight, understanding what's the existing status of what's going on in our city, understand some of the benefits and the challenges that we face as we annex property into our city. And then this third one is probably the most important for us, is just understand what you feel is the role of annexation in the overall development process for our city. We get a lot of annexation requests. I was in Provo, and that entire time that I was in Provo, we had one request. And that shows you the nature of two cities, right? Like one that's relatively built out in between a lake and a mountain, and Payson is a little different because Payson has some available property that people are very interested in. So we want to know how you all feel about annexation in that process. And then this fourth one, I'm not sure if we'll get through this entirely tonight. This will probably be an ongoing thing, but one of your responsibilities as decision makers in annexation is to determine whether or not we should consider different annexation applications. Lots of times that's just a flip of the coin. Yes, no. Most of the time it's yes, but you really don't have a lot of information at that point. So what we'd like to do is maybe work on some criteria that you can use to determine whether or not you should consider an annexation or not.
Can I make a suggestion? I would think that number 3 would drive staff to develop that set of criteria for us, and that we could meet again and discuss that criteria. So I think number 3 is the most important thing that we could do in giving you guys the tools you need to come up with a list of criteria.
Excellent. So I think that's great. And this is definitely a conversation that I think that we should continue to have. We're not going to cover everything tonight. We have lots of things to talk about. Kathy's just jumping at the bit to talk about the budget. So
She doesn't look
I
like
see
she's
numbers
jumping.
just fleeing from her
yeah,
ears.
she's just so excited. So with that, let me give you the peanut butter parable.
Oh. After we had pizza.
Just after you have pizza.
My favorite.
This is a staple in my household. Thank goodness there are case lot sales, because I have 2 little boys. I have a daughter as well, but my 2 little boys are picky eaters unless it is peanut butter. They love it, and we consume a lot of it.
Don't blame it on them.
I know, right? I work at this.
And you know, there's case lot up to Smith right now.
I know, I was there today, and I'm like, I saw a lady, kindred spirit, walking out with 2 cases of peanut butter. So, but tonight I want to tell you about the parable of peanut butter and how it applies to annexation. If you think of bread, these sliced bread as available land, right? And we could spread this loaf of bread across this table, and that could maybe represent the available land around Payson, right? Peanut butter, I want you to think about as resources, things that are going to that will require as the city to service that land and make sure it's available and ready to bring into our city all of the roads, the infrastructure, and also the benefits of having that available land in our city. One of the interesting things about peanut butter and spreading it on bread is you can get a bunch on there, but what happens when you start to spread it thinner?
Tears the
Linda.
bread.
The bread comes up.
The bread comes up and it gets some tears, right? And so
Good
as
answer.
we think about, good answer, both of you. So tonight, as we think about annexation and some of the benefits and the challenges with that, I want you to think about this peanut butter. And sometimes there's, if we had this bread all over and we thought about Payson City, how it exists currently as as an area of peanut butter. Sometimes, maybe over here a little extended out from Payson, there might be a dollop of peanut butter that we're really interested in. Maybe for some reason, we think that that's gonna be valuable to our city, right? What'd you say?
Spring Lake.
Spring Lake. That could be a dollop of peanut butter that's really interesting to us. The landfill could be a dollop of peanut butter that's really interesting. Maybe it might be a whole jar. And so sometimes we want to really go out and grab those. But what's in between our existing peanut butter and that dollop of peanut butter, there's more land, right? There's more bread that we got to spread on. And so we have to be thinking about what's in between the peanut butter jars in there as we're spreading. And it makes more sense generally to spread peanut butter and then spread peanut butter closer to where we have it, And we don't risk so much about tearing the existing bread and things like that. So that's my 3-minute peanut butter parable tonight.
Can't we just water the peanut butter down?
Well, we could, but is it as valuable? That's a really good question. That's a really good question.
Toast the bread.
Toast the bread.
And it's a lot easier to spread.
It
So
is.
now you see why I use this metaphor, guys. We can take this anywhere we want. There are lots of different things that we could do to the peanut butter. Sometimes the bread is a little moldy, actually, in between where we want to spread it. And we need to be.
Fine, some of it might be
cognizant.
soggy. That's back to Spring Lake.
Some of it might not even be baked yet. So I just want you guys to think about that as we go through this tonight, and maybe how it would apply as we go forward with the different annexations that we're considering, especially you're the decision makers in all of this. And as staff, what we want to be able to help you do is arm you with all the information that you need to make good decisions, to spread the peanut butter where it should really go in our city. Okay?
So Robert, one thing I really like is that staff has recommendations, that we can hear those recommendations and not just here's this, you decide.
Yeah, and I think that's really good. And so we want to kind of team up in that set of criteria that we can create together to
But
say,
you're even saying in council meeting, basically present, say,
Right.
here's an annexation, and staff's recommendation is.
Here's the pros and
yes,
cons,
we
and
need
here's
this.
our recommendations, right?
precisely.
And sometimes we'll be considering, like you just said, that, a big glob of peanut butter that is more important, even though it's farther away. And we got to consider it.
That's right. And it might spread. It might be a little thin in places, but it might get us there. And sometimes it might be, well, I can see that glob of peanut butter, but maybe we need to be a little closer to make it work. Maybe we need to focus on this core part of our peanut butter sandwich. And then bringing that in is going to make sense maybe in a couple of years. Does that make sense? Okay. So with that, where are we currently? So the map on the left is actually our current annexation map. And I like this one a lot, and I can switch back and forth to actually make it bigger, and we can zoom in and everything like that. But let me just explain it a little bit. So this current annexation map is in our general plan. And I like this one because it gives an indication of timetable of what we're expecting to see annexed and when. The black dotted line is the growth boundary for the city of Payson. And let me tell you a little story. So back in, I think it was in December, I asked Jill to get in the car and take me and see a bunch of different sites and what's going on in Payson, and it's still relatively new. And then she's like, let me take you to our annexation boundary. And we get driving, and she says, get on Main Street and head north. And so I'm driving, heading north. We get to Benjamin. And And I'm like, why are we in Benjamin? And she said, well, because this is in our growth boundary. This is one day anticipated to be Payson. And she says, now go left. And I go left and I keep driving and driving. And I look at Jill and I'm like, am I lost? And she said, nope, just keep going. And so we got all the way out to that corner and I thought she was gonna, pull out a shovel and hit me and bury me or something.
That 5,600.
So that's 56. So
Yeah.
all the way out here,
Top left.
Yep, top
that
left.
was top left corner, which is the
5,600
corner of-
Benjamin Road.
Yeah, 8 South and 5600
West.
West. And the base of Payson Mountain and I thought I was a goner. That's a long ways from Payson, guys. But 8 South in the county, 8,000 South,
8,000, yeah, 8,000.
8,000 South.
Their county address. Right now.
But if you look at this part, this brings it into perspective a little bit. And these are things that we'll consider and talk about, but that blue color means that that's like 20 years into the future. So we really don't have to worry about that right now. That was just a shock and awe moment for me personally to say, I am all the way out here in the boondocks.
Now, is that the north end?
That is the very northwest corner of what Payson could.
And I did say, if you look between those two trees there, you might see P Mountain.
And I couldn't see it.
From that
I
far,
still
from
thought she was- I
that
thought my
far
life
corner,
was
I
in
think
danger.
it's 9.2 miles.
So when you
corner.
turn
Yeah.
left,
From
that
there
was
to-
at the intersection?
Yeah, so we
of
drove up
Benjamin by
here.
the church, is that right?
So we drove up here
Did you
to
turn left?
8,000.
The church is on 70.
And I turned left.
A lot farther.
So
Yeah, that's right.
8,000 is the Benjamin interchange.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
that's
then
right.
we
That's
go,
what I
the
figured.
road doesn't go past Main Street at this point, but it's 8,000. So if you're at the Benjamin interchange and you were to head all the way
If
west
you
to
were-
Mountain.
Yes, okay. That's
Until
what
All of
you
that
wanted to
area.
know.
We went
They run
as
into
far
mountain.
west as we could go.
I think we need to.
But you had to
clear
go
out
down
the
to that
Lake
one
Beach
road to
area.
do that and then come over.
They're gonna fix that lake someday and we're gonna have a nice
Yeah,
problem.
we want
Uh,
like
yeah.
quick property.
I think that's like 31
Benjamin does not go out that
square
far.
miles.
We won't be.
31
No.
square miles.
Linda, rest assured, you and I will be 6 feet under.
Yes, thank you.
I thought I was gonna be 6.
No, Linda and I will be.
So Bob had a good suggestion to extend our, because Spanish doesn't come all the way over. He wants beachfront property on Utah Lake fixed up, so we just need to
Can we go
go
north a little further?
farther north.
While we're talking about it.
We could put a second
Anything's
cemetery out there.
Spread
and then
that
you can
peanut
live out
butter
there.
around.
Now you know what their thoughts are. You got them.
And we're done.
You asked for it, Toyota, you got it.
Got your criteria, man.
So let's talk about the rest of these colors. So this dark blue area, this is considering within 10 years. And this medium blue color up here, this is the 10 to 20. Okay, so you'll notice this hash
Some of
line,
that already in, no? Where's the landfill?
That blue.
The medium blue.
the landfill is here.
Yeah, but it's not.
It's in. the
Are you
city.
talking about development 10 to 20 years?
Development.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Either annexation or actual
Okay.
development.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
So some of this is annexed, but the time it actually develops. coincide with that. The other thing that I think is really cool about these two maps is on this one, that annexation boundary is red. And so this one's the one that's telling us what that type of development is going to be in that time.
Is
We
that
need
the-
to do a little fixing in this area because we've actually worked out some agreements with Santaquin, right?
Right.
That specifically says where this line is going to be. There was a little bit of ambiguity when this map was made about where that line is. That's now been,
And
It's now at 12,400 basically.
yeah, so 12,400, which is this one right there.
And I had a conversation with the mayor of Santaquin, too long ago.
The new one.
Yeah, we got to get it done.
And he's very comfortable with that.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
thought we did finalize that.
We finalized an agreement with them, but we haven't, neither one of us has changed our policy boundary.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta file it with the county.
But he's very, very comfortable with it.
We have to go through a process. I think. there's a public hearing too.
Yeah, public hearing, file with the county. When you, when you do that, we need to know as well, because that's gonna affect our fire and medical coverage area as well.
Okay.
'Cause we cover all that now.
Besides 12,400, I think goes down to the Spring Lake area.
Yeah. So there's a little bit,
The
it's
right-hand
not
side is
exactly
right, the
a
left-hand
straight
side.
line on the Spring Lake side. But that's one thing that needs to be updated, just to make sure that that's good. Scott, I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because that's another part of the peanut butter that we should be considering is
Part of the service requirement.
part of the service requirements is when we annex property, then that's our responsibility to make sure that we are covering all of those service needs and things like that. Right now, my understanding is that we get a little bit of help from the county when we go and make those service calls out in the county area, but when it becomes part of Payson City, that assistance goes away.
So right now, we cover 127 square miles. So we actually cover all the way from Lincoln Beach, all the way to Jewett. We cover all that, but we're reimbursed with agreement with the county, but that goes away as we annex. That's right. Lose that money.
Yeah, one of the things, and it's kind of off subject, but that was when we went down to the conference, the power conference, I was talking about the Utah Lake and how who would be sitting at the table. You know, Spanish Fork had the representation at the table, and it was relayed to me that, you know, maybe we should have a seat at the table there, because one of the forget what it is, a creek that goes out there that comes from Spring Lake, that goes out there and goes into the Utah Lake. And as a result of that, we ought to have some kind of presence on that board. Whether that's the case or not, I don't know, but that was a thought.
I don't think we are.
We're on the one now, but the new one they're creating, we are not.
Yeah.
That changes over time. They'll switch out who's on the board.
Will they?
It does, but it designates
What city?
what
Yeah.
cities, and we all border.
Right.
It would be nice to have representation there, because it, you know.
I mean,
it
Spanish
affects
Fork,
us.
their manager said, I don't know why Spanish Fork was put on there. I think it was just they wanted a fork and they didn't want American Fork.
I think it's because of Mike.
Well, it might be because of him, but I think they were battling with American Fork for the last year or so. And I think, I don't know, they won't ever say that, but I think it might have been a little political.
There is a section in that bill that talks about
The spring creek
Um,
goes out there. Yeah.
anybody that is in the county, they can impose, the authority can impose a $2
Yep.
a month tax, essentially it's a tax. It would be added to a sewer bill. That would cover their.
And we would control that. It would arbitrarily be forced on us. We could control that.
Well, I think they could force it.
They could force it. It's not, if they do.
It's their board that would put that on all the cities that.
But
And that's
that
why it'd be
was-
nice to have representation there.
In the negotiation, that was the key on the legislators' side, was the key to that was, if the cities want to go against me, that's fine, but we will take you guys off the board as far as representation. So most of the cities felt enough pressure, backed off. Forums, Provo, everybody backed off and let them go forward. So that's where, I think it's 8 board members are from those cities.
There are some at large.
There's a couple of.
Sorry to deviate a bit.
No, that's okay. So I'm gonna show this up here and then I'll bring it up bigger so you can actually see it. But this is a really cool map that Jill asked Joe to help create. This shows how our city has grown in the last little over a decade. Everything that you see in a color are all of the annexations that have occurred over the last since 2010.
Those are all annexations that we're still fighting over with SCC.
That's an important.
Way to
thing.
muddy the water.
I think most a lot of those annexations have been developer driven, but the big one to the landfill was city.
So this one is the landfill one.
Yeah.
That and this is interesting. Remember, you can't just go out and annex an island. Got to go annex everything in between. And so that's kind of where that one comes from. But in the breakdown of this is where this comes in. So annexation since 2010, we've annexed a total of 2,900 acres into our city. That's pretty significant. That's a lot of that. That's a lot of area. Some of that has developed. A lot of that still remains undeveloped within our city. The landfill annexation is a good example of that. That we have the landfill, and then we have all of that property in between the core of the city, basically the railroad tracks and the landfill, that's still waiting to be developed after, what is it, like 14 years or so, roughly. Right now, we're going through the process of actually planning that area. That's been a really good and enlightening process for me. I've been really grateful to be helping through that and seeing what those concerns that everybody has out there really are. And we have lots of property owners, we have lots of interested parties out there that are participating in that process. And we're having another meeting tomorrow, and I'm excited to see where it lands. So that's just total annexations that have already been completed. The most recent one on here, Springs at Spring Lake, about 9.5 acres of that property. So I wanted to show you as well. These are annexations that we currently have pending. So those that have submitted applications to us and either have been accepted for review or will soon be coming to you to be for either review or for. I can't get quite over there, but it's a little over 96 acres.
If you hit the, like on the bottom, Robert, where it's, yeah, that one, it'll just go, and then you can zoom back in.
There we go. So a little over 96. We just wanted to give you kind of that overview to understand where we've been in the last little while, and also to understand that there's still constant pressure for annexation.
What's the total acreage of Payson City right now?
If
There,
that's
2932.
No, that's
No,
just
this
what's
is
been
everything
annexed.
that's come in.
All that. But it's
I would
probably half.
say, let's go back to this one.
If it's a hard question to answer, you don't have to answer.
We can do a pretty good guess. If everything that you see in color is 3,000, let's call that a third of the property. So maybe like 10,000 acres, roughly. Is that fair guess?
That's a fair guess.
Yeah, fair guess. So in the last decade, our city has basically grown by. Anyway,
In annexations and population.
in annexations and land area, we have grown by. Back here.
Would you quit showing that,
Are
please?
we gonna annex that?
I know, I want to go.
That was Lincoln Beach, wasn't it?
Looks like beachfront property in Arizona.
We can make it that
Lincoln
way.
Beach 2050.
That's right. One thing that we wanted to kind of go over a little bit are in that discussion was some of the challenges, but also the benefits of annexation. Travis helped me put this together, and I know that Brian is here as well, wanting to just chat a couple of things about some things to consider as we annex. Currently, most of our proposed annexations are about 500 to over 5,000 or 700 to over 5,000 feet away from existing utility facilities. The other thing, and this kind of goes back to the peanut butter discussion, the road widths between those annexation areas, those aren't going to be further improved until the middle part fills in, right? So one thing that we experience as we grow is we have this core area, and sometimes we have this annexation and they annex maybe over in this part and they start developing kind of a core area that's extended from the city. And one
We
thing
call that urban sprawl.
we call that sprawl. Sometimes we call that leapfrog development. And the problem with that is that you have the middle, or you have that part in between that's waiting to be developed.
Perfect
Arrowhead Trail.
example is Arrowhead Trail.
Right.
So let me tell you my observation. Okay. You chose to use peanut butter. I choose to use two different kinds of peanut butter, chunky and the smooth. I believe that one of the criterias I'm gonna throw out to staff to fine tune is I don't really want to consider an annexation that we're not involved with by a developer, is who I'm specifically talking about, without him meeting certain criteria of how he's going to loop that gap. For example, Mr. Harwood out there, we allowed him to jump into Salem City to get his sewer until the time that we get a lift station out and can fill that middle gap in. Now, this is going to sound harsh because I'm a developer. If I had it my way, Mr. Harwood would have either addressed how he was going to deal with that sewer back into Payson City, because that's where it rightfully needs to be, before we annex it. The chunky peanut butter is what I'm talking about, the kind that the developer or the person that is requesting the annexation bring to the table with them, not that Payson City has to worry about. We shouldn't have to be worrying about that area between Harwood and Payson City, but ultimately, we're probably going to have to participate in that, correct?
Most likely.
That's where chunky and smooth peanut butter clash.
And I think that's excellent.
And I don't like that. I like the fact that considering an annexation should be, do you meet the need for, can you sewer it? Because we can't. That's got to be development driven, not us. The other thing that I thought the other night as we were grappling with Spring Creek, and as I watched planning and zoning grapple with it, is we're sitting there worrying about how we can get that lift station for the developer. And we're the ones that are caught in the middle of negotiating and trying to make it work in his development to get a regional. That's not our problem. Our problem should be, if you come in and request annexation, here's the criteria. Number one, the city council won't consider annexation until you can prove to us that you can adequately sewer or spread the chunky peanut butter on that piece of bread without the city having to get involved financially.
Well, I'm looking back at that regional lift station. My understanding is the reason we're looking at it that way is because it's kind of an upgrade from what he could do. He could do a centralized local one, but because it's the low spot for the entire area, it's better suited as a regional.
But who's going to connect into it besides him right now?
Whoever else comes in, but that's,
Yeah, but the problem is if you do all these private lift stations, they're only sized for each development.
That's right.
And they're not built to the
That's
standard
right.
the city wants to take.
That's all they're
because-
required to do.
No,
Because
it's
when
not.
we have a lift station, it's almost $750,000 to $1 million because we want redundancy, we want,
right.
we want SCADA, they want to go put a $40,000 lift station in. And then when there's a problem, they always call the city and then we have to tell them we can't help.
What I'm saying is,
So and-
maybe that will be the path that we're kind of looking for to make sure that we get a quality annexation and not just another red bleep on the map.
Well, how do we, when you used a couple of examples, and I've been here long enough that we've had these conversations at the beginning and throughout.
Okay.
Villages at Arrowhead wasn't one of multiple developments that were going out there. And for some reason, the others have been tabled and really have come to a screeching halt. There was a big one to the south of them. And it was my understanding, they were kind of like, well, we'll do these and then you guys do that and we'll all tie in and we'll all share and it will be great. Well, the other guys have never panned out.
So that's the problem, is we get developers, and Robert, maybe you haven't had it in Provo, but I'm watching it. These guys went in and annexed a bunch of property over in Lehigh several years ago, and then they've sat on it. Wrong thing to do. I think at the time of annexation, we should say, you need to pony up, or we're not going to consider your annexation with this criteria. Now, I don't have that fleshed out yet, but I got a good idea of I would like to see in there. If you've got 3 people coming in to be annexed out there with Mr. Harwood on the south side of the road, then they better sign their name on the dotted line and say, yep, we're coming, and this is what we're willing to bring to the table. Because right now, they're gonna sit there and watch all this other development around them. And mark my words, that property that they bought to be annexed has doubled or tripled in price since Harwood started his project.
So that's really.
In other words, it's a paper annexation to them.
Right. They're just laying the groundwork, right?
Same thing going with West Mountain, is we've got all these developers out there buying up these farmers' properties. And you know what? It looks good to them and they can offer that money right now. But I'm not so sure a lot of them are ready to develop. They're gonna sit there and watch the paper go up, and then they're gonna sell it to somebody else and walk away. I want some rubber meets the road, or I want some skin in the game if I'm gonna consider annexation by a developer anymore.
That's really good direction, and that helps us understand, as we are meeting with these people, what you as a council are expecting. That as we want to give you guys good recommendations, we can say, is this chunky peanut butter? Is this smooth peanut butter?
Exactly.
And to be able to understand what that connectivity is going to be and what those challenges as far as connecting to our existing system, and if we have the capacity to do that, and if we have your support and understanding of saying, if you haven't, Mr. Developer or applicant, whatever that is, if you don't have these ducks in a row, we're confident that the city council is not ready to consider this for annexation at this time. Go back, get this in a row, then come and be considered for annexation. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, what you're hearing is once we annex the property, we're stuck with it.
Is there not a benefit to having it inside of our city limits, though? Don't we
No.
collect the property taxes on it from that point on?
We collect property taxes, but it's
Do
still
we need to
probably in,
change the way
probably in
property taxes?
agriculture.
Generally, it's minimal.
it's,
Well, that's why I'm saying, maybe, is there a way to?
but the
look at
minute
it
we
differently?
accept that, we lose the county or whoever else fireability. First of all, we got to start
Yeah.
covering it now and don't get reimbursed. Number 2 is we got to plow the road out there, wherever it may be. I mean, think of all the services, the smooth
that's-
peanut butter that we're laying out because a guy wanted to
But I like
annex the
chunky
south
peanut
side of
butter.
Arrowhead Trail and then sit on it.
And profit.
And exactly right. For a minimal fee of annexation fees is all they're into it. But yet the people on the south side of Arrowhead Trail has seen their properties exponentially go clear up here with the development of what's over there.
See, and I've experienced that just recently with Taylor Ranch and the people that want to develop that. Of course, that's one of the things that's been, I think a lot of our dreams is to have a facility out there. But they wanted me to guarantee that we would annex them into the city. And I said, there's no way I can guarantee that. You know what our plans are, but we can't guarantee that until we get out there and it actually touches that piece of ground, even to start considering it.
That's right. And I think that when you go back and you think about that general plan map, and it has an annexation boundary, has our existing city, and one of the things to consider about annexation is what are the different uses and things like that we need to have in our city, right? Sometimes annexation makes absolute sense that you're going to get maybe some additional industrial land, and sometimes you need annexation for housing to support some of that growth that we're expecting, right? But I think Bob's comment about making sure that we understand what level of serviceability they're coming in with, I think that really gives us some good direction about how we can consider it, and that changes the conversation a little bit, because then
Here comes the sticky part.
Okay.
You heard me say the city driven or developer driven. If there's something, and I'll use the annexation piece that we're gonna need to do up above the landfill for the gun range. That's gonna benefit the city huge. I'm all for that. Matter of fact, we gotta figure out some way that we're gonna be able to provide services for that. But when it's developer driven, I've always told residents, we're not the ones out there pushing these annexation requests in your neighborhoods. It's a developer that's coming to us. Taylor Ranch could fall in that same, if we so choose to say that's a great deal with an equestrian park out there and it's going to benefit the entire community. There again, I think that's something we need to look at as a council and say, it benefits the city huge.
And also to consider what level of service a facility like that is going to require compared to maybe like a traditional residential.
I don't want to tie the hands of an economic development director or economic development person that would be trying to market an idea that would benefit an entire community. Does that make sense?
Well, then it makes sense to do. It's not another entity wanting to make money off the city, yeah.
So I got a question, is that in our ordinance, basically it says we're looking at 100-acre parcels to annex. So a lot of time now we're getting these little parcels and that takes as much work as a big parcel. So if a little parcel comes in, are we gonna start, do we want to say you have to annex all this area, but then you go into the property that's just sitting there. So how do you balance that? So everybody coming in, all these 5-acre parcels and trying to annex them and all the work it takes for that.
And I think that should be part of the discussion of that criteria, right? Like when I was looking at the list of those annexations that have come in, I mean, one of them was 0.44 acres. I'm not entirely sure what that was about.
That was a map.
Yeah, that was probably just a couple of stuff. and
We're
whatever.
writing annexation.
Yeah.
Can we legally say we won't accept an annexation request? We're now at the
You can
criteria
legally say
part.
you won't accept any-
I'm wanting staff. If I've ever trusted a staff before, it's this staff that's here. They are, and so the criteria that I trust that they'll come up with, but maybe, just maybe we say we're not gonna consider an annexation request under 10 acres.
And I think that,
And that's to me, it's a reasonable one. And every once in a while, you might get one that's gonna be lower. And it's just a matter of whether you guys are ready to consider it, but 10 or 20, whatever acreage you want, we can impose.
The reason
We've been ignoring the 100 for, I don't know how
Never.
many years.
We never listened to that.
there were 5 of them up there.
If we're truly following our ordinance, we should be adhering to that. You don't need the 100. Sorry, we're not doing it.
But I think
I think
the ordinance is written that it's not a mandate. It's
Yeah.
we
Right.
encourage
Yes,
it.
that's
But we
Land
haven't
use-
encouraged anybody.
But yeah, we could encourage it. The thing that you get when you do that, though, it might be a good thing, is if they can't get the other neighbors to want to join in, then it just doesn't get annexed.
But then if they get the other neighbors, then the other piece is gonna be A5 holding and just sit there. So,
Nope, because we're gonna have other criteria that says you have to do something with it.
Well, and then my only concern with that, yes, we can, and that's, we've been approached to use an annexation agreement in that way to force a certain way of developing this property. We can do it that way. We've been a little hesitant, and we've been told this developer, we're a little hesitant with those, doing it that way because this property that's right across the street from Terry Harwood's, they've been sitting on it for years, and now they've come due. Well, part of that was we did agree to be what I would refer to as a specific area plan. It's actually out as part of this annexation thing. So when it was annexed, we agreed to a certain amount of acreage and units for that acreage. And that's what worries me, is that we're binding ourselves so early on to that. When we have another level at a zone change level that we can actually address some of those issues.
So first time, shame on us.
Right. We
There's a
learned-
mistake made,
right,
but
we learned.
second time, really shame on us. We learned from the first mistake. I don't think we have any right giving somebody I think we should annex them to the zone that it is, period, the end. That the general plan shows. Then if they want to go around an area specific plan, I'm not in favor of the area specific plans that are in a rural area that we wanted to keep lower density and they come in with 50 units on 3 acres. Does that make sense? In other words, that's what we're doing is we're given area specific approval at the time of annexation when say, you know, the zone out there shows that that is, what does it show out there, Jill? On the
Which
south side,
direction?
on the south side of Arrowhead.
Yeah,
Is
it's
it?
a combination.
It's all residential.
It's residential, but it's not horrible mixed thick development. In other words,
There is
Is
some
it high?
density.
There's some high density.
But again, that's generally the result of an annexation
Right, that's right.
agreement that came in that said, this is our number of units that we need, and this is how it's
I mean,
gonna
and
be
when they walk.
distributed.
Can those expire?
That's what they were pushing on us.
well, and I get that. Everybody
He's
goes on.
worried about putting a date on the end of it, a
I am.
timestamp. This, for instance, south of Villages at Arrowhead, they had 5 years. At the end of that 5 years, it reverts back to the previous, you know, old,
The zone-
whatever zoning it was, might have been. If we give them a, yeah, A5 holding zone, and then it has to
Probably
come
be
back,
written that way.
because
Unfortunately, those ones weren't.
They weren't.
I know. They weren't, but that's what I'm saying is that might not be a bad idea because the 5 of us sitting here at this table, by the time these people come back around, I mean, felt like we've got a lot of backlash from what happened 10, 15 years ago.
Yep.
Because that's when it hits the table is right now. And so, I mean, I don't even care if it annexation agreement says until the city council changes.
Robert, are we too far ahead to be talking about criteria? You need to finish it.
I have some slides for criteria.
Do it.
So let's, I wanted to give Brian and Travis, Dave, if you want to talk about SCSD, Provo Power, or Payson Power,
Provo Power.
not Provo Power.
They're not a problem.
Forget
SCSD is
that.
a four-letter word.
Go steal their
It has a
money.
P in it.
Go steal their money.
You want to go over your specifics? Well, I can talk general, then Brian has a couple specifics, but generally, and I just thought of the one like you just annexed, the Springs at Spring Lake,
Mhm.
and I think he wants to develop.
He's
But-
already submitted the application.
So, but once it's annexed, we have to give notice, and I got our legal counsel to send me the notice instead of having them do it. We want to do it ourselves, save us a little money. But we have to give notice to SCSD that we've annexed this. Under the state law, they have I think they have 120 days to do an evaluation of
Yeah, it's 120.
to do the evaluation of what facilities they have there. We have 60 days to either pay that, or if we don't agree with it, we can get our own evaluation, and then we have to have the court. But when they annex that property, they can't just annex it and say, we're going.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna take time, and I think part of these annexation agreements, if we do them, we need to put that on the developer to say, you know what, you're gonna have to pay whatever the facilities costs we have to buy out.
That's right.
And that's part of an
That's that
annexation
chunky
agreement, or
peanut butter
that's
I'm
the
talking
chunky
about.
peanut butter. And then,
We can definitely. put that in
yeah, and I think
the
and I think we need to do that. We've tried to, we paid some of those ourselves, trying to get this lawsuit done and but any future annexation, it could take 6 months to a year before they could build. Now, the caveat to that is I don't know what the Springs at Spring Lake is. I don't even know if there's any properties on there that has a house or anything.
Yes, there's a.
There's a home, so what the law says is we cannot take over that home until we pay for the facilities. What it doesn't say is, if we have our own facilities close there, we can serve all the new homes there without taking that
Which
over.
we do coming off of 500, right?
So that one, we could extend our own.
But we just won a court case on the court part.
Yeah.
Where we asked them to disconnect. We told them we'd compensate them, but now they're gonna allow us to serve it all. So I don't think they're gonna get burned again.
I think when a developer asks them to disconnect a house now, they are not gonna play nice in the sand.
Yeah, Dave and I talked about this.
So like on the Zeman, they're not.
Yeah, they probably won't disconnect Zeman.
which in that case, it might not be a big deal in the fact that if our power's close, we can serve all the new customers.
Except for in that development, that house is right in the middle.
Yeah, if that house has to be torn down,
They can be the lone man on the
They'll,
island.
they'll probably take the house down.
Yeah.
but yeah,
When
their
you see
plan
the
was to
house
take
and
the
where it's situated.
they
they'll
probably will take it down, except
I've never seen it down
SCSD
there.
might fight that to say, we're not gonna disconnect this.
Well, and the court ruling kind of gives you this sense of 1-for-1 with with. the
Like
church
the service
out
one
here.
half, one house in the subdivision.
Yeah,
We'll give them a house in the subdivision.
So it's gonna be a new house, but it's gonna have
Right.
SCSD connection.
one of the
More than
reasons.
likely, I mean, now, if you get like with the Payson Court apartments, you're talking a whole bunch of units, right? Because of that, the judge is like, well, that's more than one, clearly. And so he was clear, he was fine with that. But that's the concern we have with this.
But that's that criteria for an annexation, that if we said to Mr. Yeah. You know what, as part of the annexation agreement, you have to make right with SESD.
You know what I'd do? I'd make that one connection a solar farm. And I'd pump the power back down their throat.
Is any new connection, so if we can get them to disconnect, they're no longer on their books, so then we could serve it on that
But
property.
that's the tricky.
But trying to get them to disconnect.
Right.
That's why I don't think that's gonna happen again.
No, I have a strong suspicion. it's not.
But I'm with Jill, we'll just give them one new house. Yeah, go connect that house up.
Well, one of the things
I
that
think we should start buying windmills. Connect them to the windmill.
I think that's what Salem did.
the other power providers, we got a ruling 3 years ago, the first ruling we had, and it made Rocky Mountain and some of the others upset because the intent of that law was not to say, well, you can keep that house, and we're going to develop everything around you. It's buy out their facilities.
That's it.
But
Yes.
that was the ruling. And so the other providers, they went back to the legislature, and we had a good enough relationship saying, just, you can change the law for everywhere except for a service district. Says SESD. Because we're in a lawsuit, and they honored that. So right now there's a carve out. So for us, we can legally do that, say, go ahead and keep your house. We're gonna develop everything around
We're
you.
gonna go around.
That's
because they're unique, different than them too.
But- But I don't
there
think the
again-
intent was to do
No,
that.
it wasn't, but that's where the judges come.
There
from.
again, I think if that becomes one of our criteria items, problem goes away for us. Developer has to solve it before he puts a shovel in the ground.
Yeah.
Um,
And, oh, sorry, you want to go specific?
Yeah, one of the problems that we have right now is the Payson Canyon, the Kevin Greg's home. That was annexed into the city, 17 acres. It's gonna cost us, in order for us to take it over as part of the 98 agreement, it's $205,000 just for material to get up there. That's not right away for nothing, that's just material to get up to it. For one house. And I kind of made a deal with Brooke to where he's gonna let us serve the builder building in the mouth of the canyon for, it's in the county, and he'll let us serve it if we let them have that. You guys have any problem with
I don't
that?
have a problem with that at all.
I think we could put something in writing, and it just depends on what they put in the,
Next councils
Agreement.
may have a problem with that if there's an annexation request for Walker Flat.
well, the other thing we thought about doing is disconnecting the Grace, Grace home, that,
The annex.
yeah, if we disconnect it, then they keep it anyway, but I think, and Jill wasn't aware, couldn't remember why we included Grace. I think it was just squaring off of
Just
the
to square it
parcel.
up.
And I did go back and look after, because I'm like, there's no way that's in there,
It's-
and it is. Yeah.
Is that up by Kevin's house?
Yeah,
Just
So-
to the east.
so I think Elmer's in the county.
Elmer.
Kevin Elmer is in
And
the.
and that annexation took the Grace home, so that's one where, under the rulings we've had, we have the right and obligation to take all properties in our city boundaries, and that's one of them.
But here's one of the things you gotta worry about. They're gonna go to the judge and say, see, they're cherry picking. They'll take the stuff that's easy, but not the stuff that's hard.
Well, we were looking at putting lights in the bathroom of the floor bay, so I mean, you're almost there now. That's an expensive light bulb, but
It's almost worth doing it just to keep everything consistent so they can never come back and say what you
Yeah, but by
said.
the time you buy easements, though, you're gonna be into that $750,000.
Well, maybe. It depends on if we can get them through the county on the, off the road.
Not private,
Huh?
yeah,
Not
if you took
private?
them off the private road, off the county road.
One of the things this,
Just work on that trail we're gonna put up there.
Yeah.
Do it with the trail.
If we did something like that, but.
But
we
is that
we
included in what
have
we're
till
asking?
May 20th. to have it
Mag-
done.
Jim? That,
Oh.
would that,
that's their deadline. That's not ours.
We're just asking
That's
for
the
funding
deadline they
for
put
trail.
on us. on
There's
taking
been-
How many of those generators did we buy?
May
Can
20th.
we just buy a generator for now?
Buy a half a dozen of those and start spreading them out where we need them for the
We
time.
are
being.
looking at a couple of generators.
Yes.
We,
One out
we
the
were
door.
still, the maddening thing for me, and I don't want to get off of the annexation. But the technology's out there, that we could put our meter on the Grace home, pay them a wheeling fee to use their line, and it could be done. We don't have to do these duplicate lines. We could do that at the golf course. We could do that out to the landfill. And so far, they haven't been willing to do that. I kind of bent one of the ears of one of the board members yesterday. I just said, look, the technology's there, and right now, we put our line up out to the golf course, they'll get zero revenue. And if they would just allow us to put our meter and would charge a wheeling fee, which needs to be reasonable, they could make money until that develops clear out there, and that could be years and years. So they could have an ongoing revenue. But right now, the rulings that have come have just made it to where they're not happy
And
to work with us.
every time they lose in court,
They
they become really belligerent.
They go after us on something else for a little bit.
So,
So anyway, but as far as annexation, that's one thing that
Well,
we have. to-
there's another criteria, staff, that I would like to see as part of an annexation agreement,
In,
is that you're responsible for bringing peace with SESD and making good to Payson City.
what we used to put that in all our annexation agreements that basically said, or development agreements too, is you work it out with SESD
they pay it
and pay them. And then,
up till 2005.
and we did that and it worked fine, but now with this kind of increased
But the
criteria, we just need to say, you got to go work it out and give us proof that you've done it. Because
Yep.
one of the things, I think some of the developments like Salisbury, that's one that we might have to get Jill to help, but Salisbury was the Mauer annexation. We have no record that Mauer was paid for, but I'm 99.95% sure that Salisbury paid SESD for that, for those lines that were there.
For them 5 or 6 years.
But
Rick would know, Rick would,
Yeah, I was gonna say, he'd remember that.
that's what, but I think we got to get that because they're saying we don't have any record that was paid for. We, at the time, we didn't require the developer to bring us the receipt.
do you know why we took that criteria away in '05?
Well, we've done it even further than 2005. I think it's just
It's
from this,
it's been in a couple of more
I-
recent
I
developments.
think it's from this lawsuit that started. We kind of changed what we put in there
Yes, we
because
changed
of,
the language.
because of our attorneys. And now we've got some rulings, we can further refine that.
Well, I think rather than Payson City continue to be adversarial with SESD, we need to let the developers
Yeah,
sort it out.
Some of them claim to have lots of money. Well, I hope they-
and I know Brian has advocated that, saying,
Well,
don't annex anything until this is
Because, you
done.
know, Brian's
put that
friends
on
with
a
some of those
development
guys, and we
agreement,
put them in an adversarial
Yeah.
situation because we've all got the grid in our, that by damn, we're gonna put SESD out of business. I don't want to put them out of business. I just want to live in peace with
And
them
that's never been,
and
the-
and allow Payson City to grow.
And they're
it's
not. gonna
never
write
been the.
And
See, the problem is.
You're
is
right,
if you look
Dave, they're
out-
not gonna, and so
Right.
rather than, we want to keep the peace, and the way we're gonna do that is allow the developer to go smoke a peace pipe with them.
But I don't think we should put it in the annexation agreements, and it's got to be in the development agreement, because Whitehorse has a lot of land out there that's already in Payson City that they want to develop, that's going to be in the same
Right,
category,
well,
and they need to solve
They
that
have
problem.
one current application for annexation,
The one,
but also they do have other land. The other land, yes, it would have to be in a development agreement because we've already missed that opportunity.
yeah, the
Right,
ones that
that's
are
what I'm
already
saying, we
annexed,
need to
we
make sure
just got to deal with. The
Well,
new-
the ones that are already annexed, we can deal with through a development agreement when they come in to get their development.
Except for we're on a time frame. That's yes. Get this stuff.
Well, the other thing is, and I don't know how much,
Oh, because they're annexed.
I don't know how much pushback
Uh,
that a developer would give, but when you're annexing, you've got all the leverage in the world.
Yeah.
When it's already in the city, you might get pushback saying, well, you've already annexed this. That said you were gonna provide these utilities, and now you can't provide them. That's kind of what we're getting at.
We need to hurry and get this done.
Yeah.
Well, it's 3,000 acres.
If any of you
Don't
guys,
we? I mean,
if any of you guys can get with board members and
I've
say,
always said we want to
let's
stay
use
ahead
the
of
meter.
the growth curve as much as we can legislatively. And this is one we need to get ahead of the curve on. Because I'm sick of strawberry. They're not going to go away. So let's be peace with them and let the developer be the one that's the adversary.
The last meeting I had with Brooke, he wanted borders. He wanted us to draw borders. But I don't.
No, we've got a good one up there.
We'll draw the border of our whole annexation
Yeah.
boundary. That's our border.
I agree.
yeah.
And we've had that conversation, we're up to the state legislature.
Brooke, there it is. You know
Yeah, I
what?
understand.
It's been legislatively approved and it's recorded. There's our border.
So kind of
Stay out
going,
of those borders.
Yep.
yeah, kind of going along those lines, Travis sent me this map. This one kind of shows one of the things that we should always be aware of as we consider annexation.
I don't like that yellow line.
That
Do I, Travis?
as we're considering utilities and all that stuff, it's not just the property that's being annexed, right? That property is going to be part of a larger system, and this map, I think, demonstrates that pretty well. And Travis, you jump in when I'm like totally off here, but east on this map is at the top. And then north is to the left. South is to the right.
Yeah, I put it on rotated just so it was bigger, because if it went like it was oriented, it would have got smaller. So the yellow line is the 21-inch line. Hanson on the Loose has analyzed that with Red Bridge, White Horse, Payson View Estates, all that's in there now. It's not all of the South Meadows area. It's not all the Spring Creek area. It's just the current proposed developments, and that line is okay for right now. But as you can see, everything in red is what goes into that 21-inch line. So it's not just the west side, it's clear over by P Mountain where Patterson Homes is developing. It's all of the business parks. So if we give away all of the capacity left in there with higher density going south of Red Bridge, your business park, everything now gets put on hold because that line's gonna have to be upgraded to do that. So we have to be careful how we allocate those remaining ERCs in those lines. Because like you said, the peanut butter, you might give away the dollop over here when you really wanted it for, like the business park or something else, so.
The question I have, Travis, I don't know if Hanson on Loose did that or if they can do it, but it would be nice to know if we upgrade that
connection.
smaller, that bottleneck from where it's at to the business park or wherever, if that was increased to the 33, how much more capacity does that give us?
Yeah, and we could ask, they haven't done that.
That's the thing that would be helpful to know.
The only problem that I see,
Because you can make
this
it.
has been on my crop for a long time. We bring this all the way down here, we get right here. And even if we go to a 33 with the $10 million that we just did, we've got 33-inch going to the sewer plant, but we still got 21-inch sitting here. We're now oversized here, but we haven't done anything anywhere else to get around and get back into this. We're still dumping it into the 21-inch. Hello, you can only put so much in the 21. So you're wasting your money putting the 33 in if you don't have a way of coming down one of these streets and tying into that somewhere.
But if the 33 is put in, it might expand enough area out here that goes to our growth boundaries with the 21.
That's a heck of a lot of city with this potential right here dumping into the 21.
It's only a 12-inch line though.
Am I right? Travis?
Isn't P Mountain gonna dump into that too? And I know somebody's looking at.
No, he's
Building the house.
We haven't figured out where P Mountain exactly will go.
Run it down the other side of the hill.
I
That would be
Everything
nice.
that.
We can put some
Patterson is
power in the
doing
ground
will
with
get
it.
into that.
I've always thought sooner or later, we gotta figure out how we can come into this line and bring it down and not keep dumping into this. I mean, that's it, guys. That's the only thing we got from all up here under the freeway and down to the.
I am with you. I think catching one of those and maybe drawing that 12-inch line the other direction. But that's an engineering issue.
That is-
That's
that-
now
I
we
mean,
should
That
have to look at
problem
that.
just
and say,
came in with, when we never had, the first time that Payson City's ever had a sewer master plan was in 2020.
Yep, you're right.
So how we got lucky enough to even get this far.
How all the crap runs downhill, we don't know.
But, we ought to, I guess, feel very grateful that we are as big as we are and we still have what we have with really not having a great plan to get there. Now we're trying to get there, we're trying to come up with the plans and, give you guys information when a new development comes in or an annexation to say, hey, because like right now, that yellow line on there, I now know has 1,200 more equivalent connections and that thing's full.
On that whole area, not just
Yeah,
Red
That
Bridge or
whole, everything. in red
everything
that
up,
you see-
including P Mountain.
Yeah. And so when you consider that Red Bridge alone is over 1,300 units by itself in that one little area, 1,200 equivalent units is not going to be hard with your business park, all the area south of Red Bridge.
Do we need to
The industrial
reevaluate
area.
our impact fees?
We are, Dave and I are talking about that.
I honestly, I think that's where we need to be. If that's the way we need to curb development, so be it. And I hate to be the guy that says, yeah, we need a $60,000 impact fee because we gotta have $45,000 for sewer. But if that's what we need to do,
Yeah,
when
and
we
that
can
that is one of the
justify it.
challenges with growing as fast as we are is those master plans and the impact fees are going to have to be updated on a fairly regular basis, not waiting like 15, 20 years and then say, oh, now we should probably update those.
Especially with costs going up.
Yeah, because like
I
right
mean,
now,
there was this
we're already
sewer
having
plant that was somebody tried to
forced
buy.
in- They're gonna add in the
What's that?
cost of the sewer
Said the
plant.
sewer
and
plant?
Sewer impact fee.
Somebody tried to buy
Whitehorse is also
for 25
requesting
million and now it's
to update
77.
all of the impact fees again.
We are updating. it
Because of
to
all
include
this
those
stuff,
costs.
because if you update it in the impact fee, then they can actually put infrastructure in on that leapfrog development and get reimbursed, but then it's still that cost of, if you don't put it in there, but then how high do you want your impact fee to get at some point? That's the balance you gotta kind of look at.
Well, I mean, I don't want to play hardball here, but our impact fees should be at the level that we need them in order for us to succeed, but at the level that will allow growth to be successful. And if those don't align, and right now I don't think they align,
Other than that, you just spread your peanut butter out thinner and thinner.
we watered it down.
Yeah, our peanut butter is pretty watered.
And the water we're talking about ain't very good.
So,
Back to Robert.
so no, I think,
Bob's looking for a gun.
but I'm worried about what he's gonna find in that bag over
I
there.
think he's looking for a,
And I know where I left it at home, but it was just exactly what you were talking about. I heard you've done a quick analysis of impact fees around the county.
We're low.
We're low.
We are low.
Every day we accept another building permit.
Right. Yeah,
We lose money.
And again, that's,
Can't lose money when we.
how fast can we get that process solved? Because
Before the budget.
absolutely, but I
We're
mean,
on a
like,
Parks and Rec one next week.
but again, I know I lost my train of thought. It was a good thought.
I like your.
those
really
trains
good.
just tip over real easy.
So Dave, why don't you tell us what you told today, where we might be able to do impact fees in-house?
Well, that's, I gotta talk to Travis about that, because when I talked to Steve Jones down at the water conference, I remember what I was gonna say. That's another annexation criteria,
Yes.
because like Whitehorse, they keep pushing, we gotta update our impact fee analysis. And it's like, well, so every time we annex a piece of property, they'll want the sewer annexation or the water or impact fees updated. And in the past, it's taken us, you go get a consultant, it's 20 grand, 30 grand to do it. And we can't do it every 6 months when somebody wants to annex a piece of property. But that's when Steve Jones said, well, Spanish Fork got it set up. And I think we were trying to do that where their in-house engineers can upgrade that every year if they want to do that. So I said, help us to figure out how that happens, because if all it is looking at the formula for the sewer impact fee, and we just have to go change the acreage or change the cost, and we can do that in-house, then I don't see there's any problem every year updating those impact fees.
Well, I
Yeah, I think if
mean,
we
right
had
now
like
you can't buy
creative
supplies
engineer-
with a bid that's older than 4 days.
I think if we
The
had
only
Al
home
help
prices
us
are
get it
4
like a
days.
spreadsheet or
Yeah.
whatever, that we could plug, take projects we finished off the list and add projects we need to do.
Absolutely.
Then I think, then it's just changing the text, adding in the right numbers, and we could go. That's been the problem, is we hadn't done it for so long that we weren't really prepared. And then the good part is we can actually pay them to do it out of the impact fees. That is legal to update or have a consultant update your impact fees with your impact fee.
But again, if we're gonna pay 100,000 a year
Oh, yeah.
for half and then 100,000 for
Right.
next year for half, that's.
But I would have no problem doing it in-house if we got it
If,
set up.
if we know how it's set
stormwater.
up. And that's what I said. We might need to talk. 'Cause
You want to go to Santa Cruz?
No,
Oh.
that's a typo.
And
But-
you might even look at it every 6 months.
It
if you
should
do it
say, I
in-house,
think
right?
that one should.
Well,
say
I would hope that,
11, or
you never know, but I would
909,
hope that
1109.
what we've been in the last 2 years is an anomaly. I mean, I don't, the history in the last 30, 40 years is, it's not gonna raise costs in the supply chain every 6 months, so we have to redo but if it
That much
continues,
curb
yeah,
and
we
gutter.
might have to upgrade it.
And as we get annexations or we need new
That
parts,
would
because
pull
we
you away
don't
how
go out
much that
so
would
far,
generate.
but every, maybe
To go
6
from
months, we have
630
need
to
another
1480.
thing, so we can add it.
Even if you
But
just
what,
doubled it.
and
to 12.
that's why maybe making it
Yeah.
a criteria of annexation, because you'll have a white horse or anybody, it could be Joe Blow out there that says, I just bought 100 acres out here, it's clear out there,
Mhm.
but we want to annex and we'll put the infrastructure in. But we want to be able to be reimbursed for that. And then, so every time there's an annexation like that, they want us to redo our impact fees. And I guess if that's criteria, say, do we really, if we just updated our impact fees, do we really want to update it for this property that's half a mile out there? Or do we say, the timing's not right yet? Maybe in 2 years, we'll be able to do that, but it seems like we're jumping a lot at all these developers saying, oh yeah, we'll annex it, because they come and say, we're gonna do this great project. We're gonna do these nice homes and this, and yet there's all this property in between.
They're doing infrastructure, they got 2-year wait on transformers, so.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, right
I still have
now.
one.
So I got another thing on annexation. I don't know what our fees are for where they come in and fly, but they're probably way too low for the amount of work it takes. And we probably ought to look at our fee structure, because we have to hire people and have them work and do all this work so I would think
Plus,
we ought.
plus we have a new process that the legislature.
I think it's a $500 fee. isn't
Yeah,
it?
see, that ought to be a lot.
Is it a set fee?
No, it's
Isn't it?
based on acreage.
Oh,
It's
is it?
acreage based.
But I know
There's a
Salem
flat
is a
fee
lot
and
higher.
acreage.
Yeah, I think ours is probably way too low. That's another thing we ought to look at.
That's kind of
Yes.
been across
But
the
now we have this
board.
new process, which really takes a lot of my time. and at the very beginning.
What we get hammered on with the legislature time and again, and I don't think we did this year, but there's a definite push to say, cities, you can only charge what it costs you. For annexation, it's probably easy to justify,
Right.
but you can only charge what it costs you to issue a business license or do that. You can't, yeah, it's not, it's not to make money, it's to, and there's some legislators that have really pushed for audits and stuff saying, these guys are charging $300 for a business license, and all they do is just sign the thing and say it's approved.
They don't pay it.
But an annexation, I think we can take here's the people that work on it here. We can put
Yeah, you can put together
together
an average of what it costs to do it.
Right, yeah.
And the guy that has to figure out what it costs.
Oh, no.
Well,
Well, anyway, this last slide that I have up here is kind of the culmination of what we've been talking about. As I thought about some criteria, these are, and Jill really helped me out with this one. These are just some things that we thought you might want to be able to consider as criteria. We've heard some good ones tonight as well. And so maybe just for the next few minutes, and this is kind of where my part will end, because I've gone 20 minutes over what I thought would be the longest part. But yeah, let's just chat about this for a few minutes to say, what do you think about this list? What else would you put on there? And then we can, as annexations come to you, say, we've looked at this list of criteria, and this is what we feel they meet, they don't, this is additional stuff.
Realizing that there'll be some projects that we'll want to go ahead anyhow, that have that big of an impact in the cities, such as the gun range and different things like that.
Yeah, there might be some that, for whatever reason, the answer. And what I'm really talking about here is, do you want to consider it for further review or just tell them up
Tell them, no,
front,
it's a desk right here.
this is not something we are ready to consider.
And if there's a matrix of point value, utilities being maybe a must check point and the other one's rating and, because if economic benefit is huge, it might trump all the other things.
So can we fashion it so
Right.
if we deny one and accept another one, which is like the gun range?
It's a legislative decision.
Okay.
All completely
So it would still-
Whatever you
So you
feel is
can't
right.
deny them at the counter if it's a legislative decision. You have to bring it to us to determine whether or not we're going
Well,
to.
they
accept
can
it.
file it.
So we can bring it to you,
Right.
and your first decision on annexation is, are you considering it for further review? or not?
Right, okay.
Right?
Yeah, but I'm just saying, somebody says at the counter was stop, and I'm worried that would really that would set us up for lawsuits. Where the gun range comes in and it's like, oh yeah.
Anybody
it's in-
can submit.
And that's
any
what I was just
Right.
talking to
We
them
can't
about.
deny-
It's a
Right, it needs
legislative.
to go to a legislative
Well, if
decision.
it's incomplete.
We can tell
can
them,
deny it,
but we can give them a good indication and have a good conversation.
Yeah.
Let
At the
them make
counter.
that decision.
So
To
your
say-
odds are no, or your odds are yes.
This
Well,
is
and
their list of
sometimes it-
criteria, and they've supported us in the past on these types of things.
Going back to the villages at Arrowhead, we talk about available utilities, we talk about the fact that it's like this island, this chunky peanut butter. But at the same time, I see a big tract of land right through the middle that's owned by one entity that isn't budging until they get the money from the state to put the new road through the middle of it so that they can develop it. And so where we're sitting here waiting on each other, the one's not going to budge till the other one moves, and we're the ones that are taking the brunt of it. And by pushing we've got to leapfrog over some of these things that are going to sit stagnant forever. That island that's out there that the Phillips sit on that's still in the county, but it's right in the middle of our city. I mean, that's that would be a good place for a park. Right? But anyway, you kind of get what I'm saying. I don't want to say slam the door on everything because we could landlock ourselves with other things around us. West Mountain could create their own city that they've talked about doing.
But in this atmosphere, it's going to be extremely.
But I think between planning and zoning,
Yes,
they,
I'm not worried about.
we're all on the same page. Planning and zoning wants the same thing that we're sitting here talking about tonight. Between them and us, if we gave staff the direction of some criteria to come back to us, I think we're on the road to resolving even the Spring Lake one. How much easier would it be able to resolve what he's trying to do out there if he had all this? I mean, we shot him down the other night because number one, he didn't have the proper road he needed from UDOT. Number two is none of us desire to see more roads go on to the 12,200 or 12,400.
12,240.
12,240, yeah.
North.
And
My bike road.
That's right.
And in my opinion, that might need to be, hey, if this is the case, that road needs to be part of that. He has to develop that, and they're all worried about that.
Yep.
But I think that it's all got to be considered.
Because we have the biggest bat with annexation as a city. We can demand a lot more
We can.
to annex them than once they're in the city. Then we have to just follow the zone and everything else, and we're just stuck.
And now we're
What
sitting
about
here
a-
trying to fix his problem
Egress,
that he created.
can we make egress part of an annexation agreement?
Absolutely.
Say that if you don't have sufficient for our fire trucks and an ambulance and whatever else might be, if you can't flow traffic in and out of the area, then you are required to upgrade those roads between point A and point B.
That would probably be more with the
I would
development.
also say, just go ahead.
You're probably gonna respond to that. I'm gonna go back to something that you said a minute ago. So go ahead.
I would also just consider that, at the annexation process, another thing that you can consider, and one thing that got brought up the other night was, we'll get a lot of pushback that says, I'm just an annexation. It's me.
No, these speakers. Oh, this. There you go.
We'll probably get a lot of pushback from applicants that say, I'm just an annexation.
Yep.
Do I need this level of detail at annexation?
I
And
think an
I would say-
agreement that they understand that at development
Well,
time,
here's-
it would have to be.
Here's what I did yesterday in the meeting with the governor. I said that an annexation agreement is a 20,000 foot level. So I'm not looking at where the roads are gonna go. I'm not looking at certain things. I'm just looking at, this is what it's gonna be. This is the chunk of land that we're bringing in, and this is the zone it's gonna be. Period. And if you want it a certain zone upon entry, that's fine, rather than an 858.
No, I think we stay consistent with what the general plan shows it's going to be.
But once you get to the level of, I'm now gonna rezone you from something, then they submit preliminary plan and final plan. Once they do that, then we can get we can start requiring where these roads need to go in and out and everything else. And there's a lot of, he barely, I think, my understanding is, he found out either the day before or within hours of the actual meeting. So it was kind of last minute. If you notice, when he was questioned about it, he reluctantly stated it. And when he said it, it was kind of in a kind of down tone because he knew that that was probably going to cause a problem for the city council.
And what I've gotten from this discussion though, is that the council would rather have a greater degree of assurance and have more of these questions answered at the annexation application.
So
So
we're
that
just
they
not
don't
giving
just sit on
somebody,
it and
yeah,
make money.
we're not giving somebody a paper annexation to go out and just say, look what I just annexed. I'm selling it to you. Can I give you my criteria that staff can throw around? Is that what you want?
Oh, you were gonna
I
make a
can write it
comment.
down, but if I can make a comment before you
Yes.
jump in. Because Robert touched on something that I think is really important, and staff recognizes it because we deal with it every day. But the first step in the annexation process, well, besides what they do with the county and with Kim,
Well, and
because it is very
That's a
extensive.
concern for me.
Yeah.
Is they're already starting a whole big process. So the minute they come and talk to the staff here, they need to understand what the criteria is.
That's where, like Robert said, we need to have a
Yeah.
conversation and say, hey, we are not the decision makers. It does need to go to the council and we need to hear from them, like Brett was saying. But
Because
I
they
think
vote-
if we know what this criteria is, we know how you feel and we can feel confident in our conversation with them of saying, the council has to make the decision that this is what we've heard, this is what we've discussed.
This is
and
the
then they
criteria
make-
they want to
And then
review.
like Travis said, then they make the decision. But I think one thing that Robert touched on that I just want to round back to before we get to the criteria is the steps. And the first step is whether or not we accept it for further review. This is a legislative decision. And even from that first step, even after they've gone through all this stuff with the county and with Kim to even get it before you for that, you can say no from the very, I mean, if you look at it and you're looking at this criteria and it is not timely, or if we know that there's still some utility concerns, I know Teresa brought that up, Councilwoman Hyatt brought that up at an annexation recently. She's like, well, wait a minute, we've got these utility issues and, are we prepared to move this forward for review when we know that we don't have the answers yet? So you guys are asking the right questions and you're saying, but I just want to impress upon this group that that's the first step. And if we're looking at this criteria and we already know we can't answer this now, or we can't answer that, or it's not the right time, or we have some utility issues, maybe it's just, we're not going to accept it for further review. The timing is not right, because all it does is, I think, and I've just noticed this over my years of experience and with all the annexations that we have processed, is once it's accepted for further review, there's almost this expectation from the annexation sponsors that, whew, they're accepted for
They
further review.
accept
They want it. They want to see this. Now we just need to answer these questions. And I think that somewhere along the way, we almost get to that point of no return.
Mhm.
It's like, even though we may come to all of these, hey, we can't provide utilities or public safety or whatever else it is, there almost gets to be a point where it's like, we've already been in a 6-month process. Can we say no now? And we are trying to find a way that we can answer some of those questions for you in the beginning. So it's like, do you just say no now? Or is it really worth, because some of this criteria has been met and we see the benefit, we'll study it further and come back to you with further recommendations. So I just wanted to loop back around because I think that was really important, what Robert said, is there's that first step. And we want to provide, as staff, it's our responsibility to provide you with as much information possible for you to make a decision at any point in that process.
If we already know it's not worth further review, of course. multiple
then we're not
reasons, then
wasting staff time.
why redo it?
Or the developer time.
Well, I'm kind of, I mean, you talk about the criteria. I don't know if it's the right place for, I mean, I'm just a little woodshop teacher, but like a memorandum of understanding that they come in and they apply for the application. You hand them back either the list of criteria or memorandum of understanding that says, do you understand that we're not in a land grab? If this is something you're doing, that we want utilities brought in, we want things upgraded, that you have a certain amount of time that we're looking at and things like that, that we can.
If it is under further review.
Jill,
that's
what-
all
But
it
I think
means.
it goes back to,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I'm
just
sorry
under
to
review.
interrupt it. I know
No.
you were gonna share some.
No,
anyway.
would it be
Dave, you have a comment.
beneficial? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Would it be beneficial to have that criteria? I don't have a problem looking at the annexation at the onset and saying, and we all look at it and say, and we'll already have this criteria in our mind, are they cherry stemming? Not cherry stemming, but are they creating a void between them and even though
Leapfrog
they're,
development,
Yep.
whatever, yes.
yep.
Cherish them was good. term.
We could look at it and say, yeah, we accept it. You have the list of criteria. We won't further consider this for approval until this stuff is all met. Go on your merry way and don't bother staff with it until you can answer all those questions.
Well, and I think also having this list of criteria gives us better information to give you at the beginning of the process, right? To be able to say with confidence when we come to you and say, this applicant has submitted an application for annexation. We've reviewed their application based on these criteria, and this is our recommendation as staff to you, the decision makers, of what criteria they meet, what they don't, where's the deficiency. And then you have an opportunity to make a more informed decision than thumbs up, thumbs down.
Are the benefits in our favor or are they not?
Will this tie our hands on our own annexations though? That's where I keep
No,
coming back
no,
to.
there's two,
If
we
we went,
set our own rules.
well, yeah, but we can't break our own rules.
If it benefits the city,
Okay.
it can. If it benefits the city in general,
Is that liability or we can set ourselves up for lawsuits?
No.
Like if we go out,
If you put it
What?
in your
Jason has
findings-
nothing.
I don't, I'm asking out of curiosity. I'm just,
These are
Devil
all
advocate.
I mean, it's still a legislative decision, right? And
Right.
each one of them.
but if we're saying that you have to have your egress and your roads and the sewer and the water and all this needs to be done, and we went out and cherry stem for a great big huge shooting range out on the West Mountain, and we don't
But
put
but
those.
it's not really cherry stump because it's right.
I know, but it kind of would,
but you're right,
Your-
the services aren't
the services aren't there.
there.
So
Probably be
technically
cautionary,
kind of
though, that
would
if
be,
it doesn't
but-
meet the criteria, then give it a second look.
Well, obviously,
Right.
like at the shooting range, you'd be looking at a septic tank and probably a well out there
Right.
because it's not cost effective to run 2 miles of utilities out
But
there.
if we've set the criteria for somebody else,
Right.
why
Right.
would we not have to for ourselves? That's what I'm asking.
So,
You have a comment. Let
I'll
Dave-
let
oh,
Brian go.
So I think there's kind of already a process. We have it for further review. And I think that's a lesser criteria than, so when they come in first to the application, yeah, we gotta have, these are the things we're looking at. You understand if we do it for further review, then you have to go this step, which is a lot more, because we want to know all the utility stuff. And then just knowing that just because it's for further review doesn't mean anything. And then you do the next step and put a lot more effort into it. And then that's, so there's more
But-
steps.
but
Your
from
first
day
offer.
one, Jill or Robert or whoever they're dealing with, hands them the criteria, hands them what's gonna be expected for final approval.
Because they may make their own
And if they
decision.
That's
don't
right.
rise to that
They may
level,
say, you
then-
know what, I'm out.
That could be on the website. They don't even need to come bother us at that point.
Here's just, I don't know if it's a counterpoint, but there's just a couple things to consider when you write all the criteria. And I think we had this several years ago, because we used to have in our annexation ordinance that they had to provide, what was it, a specific plan? You have to have a specific plan, and the blowback we got from developer after developer that talks to the council is, you're asking me to spend 40 grand or 50 grand to do this specific plan, and you guys don't have to annex us after we do it. And so if we have the criteria of all these things we're telling them they have to do, they have to spend money, go do all this. And then you guys can come back and say, well, we appreciate you doing all that, but you know what? We don't think it's time to annex. So I'm just saying we got to be careful on the criteria, because you're going to get developers that are going to really push hard, because they did before. Because that was in our ordinance, say you got to do this specific plan and you have to have all that done. And then we'll decide if we want to annex you. And so that's where you're going to have, I think you just got to balance what that criteria is. The other thing that I think is not a problem in our area, but the annexation laws are pretty loose. And we have agreements with Santaquin and Salem and Elk Ridge with the boundaries. And so far, everybody's played nice. I mean, Salem City called a few weeks ago and said, hey, this person wants to annex. We told them, sorry, it's in Payson's area. Having said that, I don't think there's any teeth in that ordinance. You could have an Elk Ridge or a Santaquin or a Salem that says, Payson's going to make me go through all this stuff to annex. I want to go to Salem. And if Salem has a council that says, we don't care what this boundary line, it's in our boundary too, they could annex it and there's probably nothing we could do. So I'm just saying we have to look at both sides, because we can put as much criteria as you want to put on to consider. But if it becomes too much of a burden on the developers, they won't do it. They won't annex, which may be fine for us. But on the other hand, if you get one of our sister cities that said, hey, we'll take you, and we're not going to make you do all that, then we could lose. Right now, I don't see any problem with any of our cities. It's been pretty good on all sides to say, no, that's their area. No, but
That can change.
it could change.
That's what we developed.
Difficult to work with again.
Another thing, Dave, to go with that is if a bunch of cities do this, the legislature is gonna get involved.
Exactly.
And they're gonna change the rules to tell us how we have to do it.
And
So that's what we
and I'm not discouraging this. I think this is good for us to have criteria. I'm just saying, if the criteria gets too onerous and too expensive for them, without the knowledge that it's going to be annexed, that's where we ran into it before.
I don't think, Dave, we're asking for them to engineer and design. I think we're asking them to answer these questions. And simply by calling Travis and saying, I'm wanting to annex 5 acres down here, I plan on putting 10 homes on it. And Travis says, not in the general plan. I can't sewer you. Check that one as a no.
Right.
That's yeah.
That's gonna be a no every time.
And if that's all it is, I think that's great.
That's all. So there again, I think I'm saying, let's go ahead and consider them for an annexation request, just as a consideration. And we may say, yeah, we're gonna further explore this with you. You have the criteria that you received the day you filed the application. Go do your homework, and when you're ready, come back to us.
And I think one of the criteria, for my criteria,
We're right.
it's gonna cost them, all the infrastructure is on them and it's not on the city.
Yep.
Power, if there's something downline that has to be improved, it's on them. Or if we have to do a regional lift station, it's on them. We aren't gonna do a little one on their place. So that's kind of my criteria. They're covering all the.
I think staff gets where we're going with this. My thoughts are this: all the infrastructure items, electric, an approval letter, or just check the box that you have worked out with SESD, and the night or before you need to submit a letter saying that from Strawberry, that you have an agreement worked out, not Payson City. The water, the sewer, the impacts is what the infrastructure impacts, a minimum acreage. Anybody got heartburn with that?
What was that last one?
Minimum acreage.
I don't know, the minimum acreage kind of gives me a little bit of heartburn.
I don't know,
because
so that I think I'm gonna leave that for staff.
But yeah, we can
Okay.
discuss options.
I-
right back.
I'm just throwing that out as staff come up with that. Talk to Kurt, talk to, you know, what, I think
Pull
10
back up that
acres to me.
annexation map and let me,
Uh,
I'll show you where my heartburn is with that, but
potential,
no, that one's fine.
Yeah.
But see-
Gotta get the tables.
No, that back to the one that you originally asked, this one. So if you look, you get these little tiny alcoves, these pockets. to me, if you say, well, it's a minimum of a certain amount of acreage, some of those alcoves, you may have to take a big chunk of them. Where I'm looking over there at the right off Goose Nest, they've got that little tiny horn up there, and if they wanted to whittle away at that a half acre at a time, I mean, I don't know if that would be a big deal. That's where I start to
Good
see.
example of that would be along SR 198, we have Erkenbrack,
Yeah.
Scram, White House. and
Yeah.
other ones.
Or
We're
like
in the
this little
county.
tiny,
Are
look
you
at that
looking at
finger
that
down
there
there.
at
The bottom
Taylor
left
Canal
corner.
and Goose Nest?
If you
Is that what
say
you're looking?
I'm just saying in general.
There again, that's criteria that we will consider. If, I think we need to throw the common sense part in this too.
Right.
Well, again, if you put a point system on that,
Yeah,
if it's
What
100
size
acres, it's
could
10
be,
points,
yeah,
it's 10
it's-
acres, it's 1 point.
the last one I had, I mean, I put roads, obviously, I put potential park. If they're annexing a larger piece, I think that they need to come to us with, we're gonna give the city 15 acres of park space or whatever, 3 acres, whatever.
But we still have to fund that.
That, I'd give them big points for that. As long as they donate the ground, I'm okay with it.
On that note, budget wise, I think we should have it based so many acres apart constitutes a full-time employee. And if you break that, we've got to pay for them.
And then my last one is a deadline for development. If you're gonna annex to us, what is your deadline to be through the approval process or a date? I realize, we're talking 2 years or a year to get a transformer in that, but we gotta have something that don't allow them to sit and have a paper annexation while everybody else builds out around them and they become a thorn in our side because they haven't done anything.
So are you also in favor of, in addition to that, the sunset clause within the?
Yeah. And if they don't, we de-annex
Yeah,
them.
well, that's a whole other process.
No, I don't think we want-
That's a really ugly process.
That's a
it
really
is.
ugly
It is.
That's a
process.
really
Is it
ugly
ugly?
I would
process.
suggest not going there.
Well,
We wouldn't
Yeah,
wanna go there.
That's a bad process.
But at least it would go
Yeah,
to like an
exactly.
A5H zone.
Right.
Well,
Or it reverts
Yeah.
to
you can
some-
revert
something,
those
you guys,
zones,
that-
something, we can do that.
I mean, we're all
Change the
tired
zone,
of
but
seeing
taking it
things
back
sit
out of the
there
city, That's an
I don't
ugly
wanna-
process.
and nothing happened to it.
You don't want to do that.
But
Am I right?
I guess my concern is this, we start putting these kind of, these timeframes. What if the market, right now is great, other than you can't get some supplies right away.
What if it's another
But-
2008?
What if all of
I-
a sudden?
and that's
it's a
why I say,
downturn?
I'm throwing
And then-
common sense into this, but the hot market that we're in right now, if somebody comes to us like Red Ridge, Whitehorse, whoever, and wants to annex 10 acres right now, they better be ready to develop.
I guess what you're saying is if they come in and say, oh, we're not gonna develop for 8 years, you're gonna be like, well. then
Come see us in
sorry.
8 years.
Yeah, come see
Well,
us in
maybe that's one of the, again, they put their estimated time of development, and again, there's a point system to that.
Yeah, I don't mind it that way.
Don't we need to quit
looking at these policies as like just right now? I mean, these could change in a year.
Sure
I mean, it's just.
Because of the economy.
I mean,
moving,
look at,
ongoing.
look at the
and
general
like
plan.
Tracy said, that's exactly what I was thinking, because it was like Arrowhead.
Yeah.
That was annexed in 2003.
Yes,
Right.
And we thought something was going to happen.
Yeah.
The market was one way in 2003. It changed in 2008. It's different now. And
and it's gonna
And now
change
we
again.
have, and now we have the development happening out there, but like you said, that has to be part of it too, and I know that we don't follow the market maybe as closely as a real estate agent or a developer or something like that, but maybe that needs to be, maybe it's not a criterion, but maybe it's something we think about, but there's just the timing of it too. Like I said, we thought that was gonna happen in the early 2000s, but it didn't happen till 17 years later. And a lot of things had changed from that point, and you had to look at those developments and make decisions on those. And you felt like your hands are tied. Well, they are, and so we've got to think about that too. What could change in the estimated timeline?
Can
of development?
those annexation agreements give power back to the current city council? So our hands aren't tied 17 years down the road. That's where I struggle with it is.
Because we're gonna bring them in.
No,
what
I
the-
mean, once you annex, the annexation agreement, that's the problem we're having with, I'll call them chocolate homes, because that's the development. Chuckle Homes has this agreement that's been in place for years and years and years, and they're having us enforce it. We have to abide by it. So whatever you're putting in this agreement, once it's in, unless we de-annex, which is a lengthy, ugly process. Unless we do that, we have to just let that agreement go. We have to abide by it whenever it's called.
Would the sunset clause, would that void those agreements?
I think I'd rather let staff
We can
think of that, come up with the brainstorm
I mean,
idea.
we could maybe.
You've given
change
us
it,
really
like if
good
we do-
direction.
we
Yeah.
Apply
Okay.
one zone, and we can maybe
And
go out to another.
Like I said, we're not gonna solve all of annexation in 2 hours, which
Nope.
I'm sorry. I kept you.
We don't need anything else, it's just
But-
budget, right?
But I would honestly say, I think that we have good direction.
Yeah.
So,
I
any final thoughts on annexation?
Don't make it too
I
difficult
like that.
for entry, but make sure they understand that they're gonna pay the cost. As long as they pay the cost, then it shouldn't be a real difficult process. As long as
the
you know-
chunky peanut
Yep,
butter.
yep. Then it shouldn't be too difficult a process.
And I don't
That's
have
a
a
really
problem
good
with you
closing.
putting that in there saying
Chunky peanut butter.
you will take care of the chunky peanut butter.
And if you warm it up, it goes on easier.
Yeah.
Put that as a requirement.
I'm
Robert.
glad my
And
metaphor
it swallows really.
No pun intended. I know, but I'm gonna go have some pizza now.
It's gone, I'm sorry. It's gone cold.
Thanks,
So are
Robert.
we moving on then?
Thanks, Robert.
To
Thank
number
you all
two?
very much.
Okay, fiscal year 2022, 2023 budget. Dave and Kathy.
Can I share, Kim?
Yes.
You don't care about.
You're like all the
I don't
other
care.
22,000.
Just make sure you spend it wisely.
Kurt, we'll make sure there's a raise in there for you.
Appreciate it. That's
Divide by
20%?
zero.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. Being better.
Kurt,
100% of nothing is still nothing, right?
Yeah, there you go.
planning and zoning echoes this.
Yes. The one thing I would say is when you decide that it's okay to annex or to consider this for further, and you send it back to planning and zoning, send your recommendations with that. Otherwise, we're going in blind. We don't know what you've been thinking. So make sure that that's part of what you send back to us. Because we then get it next and have to say yay or nay in a public hearing and send it back to you.
So under the new law, you actually don't have to do a public hearing anymore.
Oh, we don't? Well, that's good.
Well, but there again, it'd be nice to know why we sent it back.
But I agree with you that the actual reason behind this.
It would help us understand what your thinking is and help us give us some direction. That would be good.
We sent Spring Creek back.
So the law changed, we don't do the public hearing anymore?
Let me stop sharing.
Okay.
Now it's just city council. Okay, well, that's good. Although there'll still be
One
public
less,
hearing.
one less public hearing for you guys.
The bobsled party, we said.
No, but see,
We spent-
right now, nothing's being, right, nothing's changed because he's sharing it. He's mirroring the screen to this from a different
What was
screen.
the downer for me is when the state road said, we don't have any way we're gonna let you come onto the
Well,
Spring Lake, not Spring Creek.
That was,
Springs,
the
Spring,
9
spring.
acres.
You know what?
9.5 acres.
Yeah. the 9.5 acre.
Yeah, the 9.5 acres, because, and I wondered, he kept saying, well, we're gonna have a road here, and I thought, that's limited access highway, and I'm pretty sure it's closer than 500 feet to the existing roads.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna happen, but what he's share, you know.
We're gonna get that
all
turn
of a
lane
sudden
with this new
Scared me
development.
to death, dumping all that crap. Because right now, there's only one way we can go out.
Right.
It's showing.
In my mind,
I guess you submitted one that has all of that. stuff.
We had one going, everything to the south.
to 500.
Yeah, that's what Jason just told me. I haven't seen it.
But we also have.
But it still had
Yeah.
That, I don't want traffic going up there.
If he does that,
We'll let planning
that
and
road
zoning-
needs to, we need to close the access when she's there and straighten it out off that road. I take the whatever house is up there. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's even. All 3 minutes and 2 hours. Put a light.
God, you
We
know
told him
how
that wasn't acceptable.
Oh, you
fast
need.
they put in line.
It needs to
So if
come
you
all the
come down here,
traffic
you have
coming
the
on
one right here, and then you have this one that comes out there, and then this road, and this is the subdivision.
Yep. Motion to adjourn or what?
No.
You want? Aren't we done?
I second it.
Jill, we're,
Sounds good to me.
we got my passionate part over.
We've got a second. If we have a motion, we're
we
done.
got- we got it.
Poor Kathy
I know
sat
you
there.
All in favor? Oh, wait.
Brian, just approve everything you see. I will be there.
Okay, we can talk as long as you want on this. I'm just gonna go through a few things, but just let me talk process a minute. So we had the council retreat a month or two ago. We've had all the departments put in their budget requests and Kathy's uploaded that. We've met with most of the departments. We've got a few more tomorrow and a couple on Monday. And so there's some things we haven't decided yet, like employees and stuff, but we'll have a budget work session on the 6th, next Wednesday. The second meeting in April, we think we can cancel those that are going to the league. We don't think there's any development that has to be there. But that would take away one of our work sessions. The first meeting in May, we have to adopt a tentative budget. And that's what it says, it's tentative. It's before we have a public hearing. And so from the time we adopt a tentative budget until, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, I'm assuming the council wants to do a truth and taxation. So that means we would have a public hearing in August. But from May until August, we can have continued work sessions, we can adjust, we can refine, we can do that. So I'm just trying to give you a timeline. When the budget's adopted after the public hearing in August, then it's a final budget. And hopefully by then, we've been able to refine and do the things we need to do. And we want the council to have as much input as you want, but we're trying to get a balanced budget. Right now, we're not balanced, but I'll show you what we have done at this point and some of the requests that have come in.
Between now and August, we can see how many travel trailers were sold.
We'll see how many travel trailers.
So 37 as of yesterday.
37.
They haven't even had a grand opening yet.
That's the
That
6th,
first
right, at 4
day,
PM. Did I get that?
5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it fine?
No, it's 4.
It's 4.
Well, I saw something. that said
I think they
5.
changed.
When
it.
is that?
Oh,
I've
none
got
of
it.
us-
Today.
none of us said it was-
I was in Oklahoma
I
when
think
that
they
was, so
changed the
maybe
time.
And I'm gonna be
Might
out
be
of town.
4 months. I'm gonna be there.
Do you know what? Don't ever put anything in your
I've got
calendar
it.
in a different time zone.
But I saw something.
I did
time
that.
you
I
left?
showed up an
Yeah,
hour late.
my invite,
Jill's pulling it
Says
up
4
because I
o'clock
think
on
they
it.
sent another one.
It is
Yeah,
at 4
don't ever accept an invite in a different time zone.
it's at 4 PM.
Because I was in Alaska and I showed up 2 hours late for a meeting. once.
So if they amended that, we have not.
On the
received it, right?
6th.
Well, that's what I thought it was the 4 PM,
Yeah.
and then I saw something else. I thought
Yeah, I
something
accepted it
4 is
somewhere.
what I was thought.
Yeah. 'cause
Yeah,
it's
6th at
council.
4 o'clock.
Council.
Okay, so I'm gonna go over first employee requests. And I know when we had our work session, there were 8 or 9, and it's bumped up a little bit. So we'll go through the employee requests. Now, none of these have been funded up to this point. We're trying to get everybody in and look. I can guarantee you, unless the council really wants to raise rates across the board a lot, that we're not gonna be able to hire all these people. Just telling you. Okay, oh, and is that gonna? That's pretty cool.
That is small.
I don't know if I can.
Can you put the?
Let me see.
I can see it just fine.
Yeah, me too. With glasses or
I don't have my
without.
glasses.
I can go through these quick, but okay, so administration, there's a 3/4
That's a whole list of ambulance people.
employee that we want to make full-time. So that's taking a part-time to a full-time in administration. You can see the ambulance, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 firefighters, a couple of paramedics and EMTs. Now, I've talked to Scott about this. I don't think these are all going to get funded, but these are the needs that he sees.
Would this move us to a full-time fire department? Is that what those kind of numbers would be?
Well, some of them are part-time and some of them are some full-time positions, but we're just, would start moving that direction. Still would be basically a combination department where you'd have some part-time, full-time and volunteer. I don't see us getting rid of volunteer for a long time. We gotta have the manpower.
The estimated costs are on the right. You've got, and this was talked about at our retreat, you got a fire marshal and you've got a fire captain. In the golf, there's a second assistant. In the grounds, there's a grounds foreman. The library, it's part-time assistant librarian. I think they would take that within the employees that they have and just, they're working on the hierarchy of how things are. The parks, a park technician, another employee, development services, a building inspector, or plan examiner. I know John's getting close to the end of his rope and so working on that. They also put in for a planning intern. The police, another patrol person, and a drug enforcement. I know we talked a little bit at the retreat about drug enforcement. Power, a substation tech, recreation of ballpark maintenance, part-time, right?
Yeah, that's.
Seasonal. In a sewer, they would like another lead worker.
I thought it was lead. I thought it was.
That's the water department. We've got a lead problem. It's gonna come up in a couple of years. It's from
Next
the,
week when they dig up my water main.
well, from the Biden administration, the EPA's
yeah.
put new restrictions that we gotta solve that. in a few years.
Oh,
And it's of course not fun.
Let's go back. Just use the wooden pipes. That's what always goes out.
hollowed out logs.
The streets are looking for a driver, an operator. The water department, a fire hydrant tech repair and replacement. So those are quite a few employees. I think there's 27. The total request, if we funded all those, is about 1.4 million.
37 trailers.
Yeah, yeah.
Brian, time to sell more. So Dave, while we're talking about that, what are we looking for wage increases for the employees too? Because that's gonna be part of that equation.
None of these have been funded yet, but we were looking at, as far as the current employees, we budgeted 6%. We're not sure if that'll stick, but we've looked around from several city managers. I've been getting, and I'm supposed to be getting a survey that one of the cities is doing. They were thinking 7% is kind of the average. There's some that are going more. And so it's just a hard one this year because the inflation rate's up in double digits, isn't it? Or
They're saying it's 9% at
is it
least.
9?
Looking at this list right here, you're not gonna be able to fill those positions unless you pay your current employees more. And then they're gonna leave because that's how they're gonna get more money, is going and starting from the ground up.
We got in this
Starting
years
wages.
ago and we got behind. If we only go 4 or 5% and everybody else goes 7, 8, within 2 years, we're gonna be watching every one of our employees take a hike. Except our true loyal ones, and they're gonna wonder what the heck we're thinking.
The ones that are
So
vested and don't wanna start over on retirement.
I'm telling you, we need to keep our employees happy and up to market value. That's my feeling.
And it's not easy right now.
No, it's not easy.
We've been working on it for the last few years, but it's a challenge. Challenge with our budgets too.
Yeah.
That's the employee. Now, when we have a work session next week, may have this refined some. We're gonna meet with all the departments and then probably get all the department heads together around the table here and kind of look at what our priorities are.
Dave, I didn't see, I'm trying to look and I don't have my glasses.
It says you're late for young men.
Yeah, you're late for young men.
That's not mine. No, that's Robert's. I think it's not pulling up on mine.
Dismissed.
Robert, you're late for the next month.
Do you have,
They'll be okay with that.
I see the building inspector, I see a planning intern. Where's our economic development person? That's already budgeted. It's in the budget now, not a new employee.
We got a budget amendment next week
Okay,
with.
Okay.
It's not in.
I can say I couldn't see it anywhere now.
You guys are gonna spend all
He's
the money.
funded, don't worry.
Okay,
We're
Okay.
spending everything. Okay, so that's the employee front.
Okay.
Next, we'll do some projects. I'm gonna list all the projects that were submitted. I'll show you the ones that have been funded so far in the budget, although the budgets haven't been balanced yet, and there's some of these that will be funded. We're looking at where our fund balance is in the various departments and what we can spend. But here we go. So these first few, the ARPA, that's the money we got from the federal government. we're gonna get 2.4 million, and as we look, here's the projects, the sewer line by the hospital, we're trying to get that done before the roads resurfaced, and we're gonna need that done before the new high school is built. So that one's one over there. It's we did the design work in-house, saved us some money, but it's looking, the estimate's about 800,000 for that project. Well, number 2 needs to be rehabbed. That's about $1 million estimate. It needs to finish getting designed and put out to bid, but that's the other part of the ARPA. And then upsizing the 20-inch line from the water tanks in the canyon down, that solves a bottleneck as well. That was an important one that we needed to get done. 370 there, and we're using some of the money from impact fees, so it's about a $600,000 project estimated. And then there's one of the projects, 100 South, 4,300 feet of water line. They're doing most of that with impact fees, but we need a little bit extra, so we did have a little bit extra estimated for ARPA funds, so 230,000 from that. That would spend the 2.4 million.
Yeah.
And some of that's happening right now. The design, we'll get those going as soon as we can with the ARPA funding. We received half of the ARPA funding. We'll receive the other half, the other 1.25 in June. So then we go to B and C. There's an 800 South mill overlay. There's 1130 South mill overlay. There's West Utah Avenue milling. 400 West, 400 North safety sidewalk. There's slurry sealing around the city.
Salt
in
storage
various
down at the
places.
shop.
On the salt storage building is all out of the B and C funding. The last one there, the CDBG project, we may want to talk, and
I've talked a little bit, I got a little bit of,
okay,
not absolutely, she's going to try and get back to me, but there is a possibility we could use that in the facade. She was going
Okay.
to look at that.
okay.
Of course, the other thing is being able to roll it over to another year, and she said that was a definite possibility. that we
Okay.
could do that possibly.
So we're looking at options, but here's the thing, the 500 West CDBG project, it was to put some sidewalk from Wilson Elementary, and that's something that this body wanted to do. The amount of money we got from the CDBG funding is 153,000. As we had this design, I think Brant Tuttle's doing design at Northern, but to upgrade all the water, sewer, and the storm drain and all that, Brant came back and it was like $900,000. And with all the other projects we're doing, we just didn't know if we had the money to complete that one. And CDBG is great, but it only pays a small portion of these projects to get them done. And so we looked at maybe cutting back and just doing the bare minimum with maybe the storm drain and the curb gutter and sidewalk. It still ends up being about 600,000. The kicker was Kent came in yesterday and he said he contacted Brant to say, what can we do to pare that down? And but also keep the federal requirements of the Davis Bacon and all that stuff. And Brant had to calculate that in. So the $900,000 project went to about 1.5.
1.5.
So
So
bacon wages cost us more than the grant.
yeah, to have to do a federal project like that with federal money, it does balloon the cost
Because
up.
they just recently raised those wages up and quite a bit, and that's part of what's like that.
So here's a couple of things. The mayor hit on that a little bit. We talked to the mayor because he's on that board. We like to utilize the money that we're given. But we talked about a couple of possibilities. One, with all these projects we're doing, if they'll let us roll that over one more year, maybe next year we may be in a better position to get that done. And maybe some of the costs will go down. I can't guarantee that.
That's one we rolled over last year, right?
We
Yeah,
did.
because of COVID, and it's still because of COVID, other than the fact that we're having
Well,
some budget.
yeah,
cuts, too.
supply chain and stuff.
We're
Supply.
probably, I'm surprised we haven't had neighbors starting to call already saying, are we doing it
Are
this
we
year?
doing it? The other thing that we talked about, and this would be abandoning this project, and that's something I know the council's concerned about with that safety sidewalk, is with the downtown we're doing and all the renovation, we were trying to get some seed money to do like facade renovation, and CDBG money could be used for that. So the mayor approached him to say, could we use that 153,000 as as seed money for the facade grant money that we could, if a business owner would pay half, we would pay half and see if we could further upgrade the buildings on Main Street, because we're putting a lot of money into it.
Yep.
Down
And
there, so-
she said that she was willing to look at it. She didn't dismiss it offhand. So
Right.
She was willing to look at that.
So those are just a couple of things we did, but as far as the projects, that one is not really funded because we don't have enough money to fund it.
Well, Ken did mention, just real briefly, that maybe we could do part of that project so we can show the neighbors we're trying to get this done.
Yeah, maybe a block at a time.
So my suggestion is if we can move the CDBG grant over to the facades, do that because it's gonna save us money in the long run. And not try to figure out how we're gonna pay for it.
And not do this
in-house.
through Davis Bacon.
Right, right.
And try to find the money another
Yeah,
way.
yeah, because if it costs us 150,000 more to get 150,000, that just doesn't make any sense.
Some of the wash.
Well, I thought it was 600,000 to get the 150.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's not
exactly. That doesn't make any
it's like
sense to me.
300,000 to get to
It is,
150,
Brett.
but you're
Right.
You're going in the hole. You're going in the hole.
I'm okay with that. I do think we need to show some good faith though to the neighbors.
Yeah.
Not that I'm in that neighborhood, but two of them approached me last year. Dave Guest was one of them. And I said, Dave, we're not gonna do it this year.
Can we
So
get the school district to help a little bit with that too?
There's another grant with safety sidewalks. We've applied in the past for like Barnett. We haven't been able to get it, but we could try to do some other grant funding. And Teresa, I know you're on there. Teresa's been one that's been adamant to try to get that in there.
Got
That's
an
that's
idea.
why we're trying to find a way to do it, but we also, with those costs, it's just hard to get that one done.
But I think it'd be well worth the look at to get part of it done independent of what we're talking about too.
Yeah, I don't like to see those little kids on the road.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can we widen it and put gravel over there?
no. Gravel's even more offensive to the feds.
So
Jeez, those
on
kids.
this one, over on the right-hand side of what we have funded, although we didn't fund that 500,000 at the bottom.
Yeah.
So there's CDBG, these next two are the same thing we talked about. There are some COVID projects that we had that CARES Act money. We still have that there. We can give you an update. Maybe we try for next council meeting to give you an update of what we have spent. And like touchless faucets here, we've got some of that. There was a supply chain thing too. So that money's still sitting there. It hasn't gone away. We have that to be able to use for projects.
And there's some COVID money with CBDG that maybe we could qualify that wouldn't really do anything for our 500 South project, but we could use somewhere else. So there's some money left over there.
Okay. You got development services, there are 4 things, Spring Lake area specific plan. The council's aware that currently is funded in the budget. Title 19 and 20 code amendments. Seed money for the Main Street grant program, that's not funded, but if we get the CDBG, we would handle that part. That would take care of that. And then a new lease for a new building inspector. Or have we lost the one?
New lease, are you talking a vehicle or?
Oh, that's a vehicle for,
Yeah.
if we get the new
Yeah.
inspector.
Okay.
Sorry.
And there might be some opportunity to share vehicle there.
Facilities, carpet in the banquet hall, flooring around the courts. We put new flooring in a lot, but down at the courts, still the old stuff. We don't have a bid on that yet. That's not funded. A food cupboard, that's the one where the lady came and put this food thing out here. It's way too small now, and I don't know if we put another in another location and try to keep that going, or
You know why it's not used very much anymore, because what's his name passed away, and he was. Dave took all
Yeah,
the.
he took it all out.
all the food. That's
Oh,
why
did
it's-
he?
Now why it's full all the
Jensen.
time, and they're extra
And-
food, so.
Yeah.
And probably, Jill knows what I'm gonna say, probably 50-60% of that sits in the house.
oh,
Is still sitting in
That
there.
Never got used.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, the one that I took.
Sounds like you had a pretty good food bank.
You can go get it
Yeah.
back.
I took-
Well,
then
I
if it's not getting
think-
used, let's get it out.
yeah, and I don't know if we want to continue it or just clean it up and just keep food in that one part. And I don't take the rest of the food bank.
Well,
She's still supporting it, the lady?
I haven't heard from her
She
for,
cleaned it up, 'cause she said she
No,
would.
nobody's
take care
taking
of
care
it.
of it.
I haven't seen anything and I haven't heard
I
from
think
her.
we should turn
listen,
it
you
over to
got,
the
you got
facilities
$3,000
management.
budgeted. When you come up with an idea, let us know.
Okay.
Leave it there.
And then the
I'd rather
scale,
see the $3,000 move somewhere else and we get rid of it. I don't know that that's really our responsibility to go for it.
It's not, but I think some citizens have got used to donating to it. I have.
yeah.
Once I donate, I don't care where it goes. I donated it at my own free will. I think it's more for the community. Whoever uses it. I mean, if I pull up there and it's clear full, I'm not gonna leave anything. So
Okay, well, we can look
leave
at
it
that.
there. We're only
Keep an eye
talking,
on it.
yeah.
The other thing which will be on our budget adjustment, I think next week is, we worked out that thing with Kenny saying they're putting the
Yeah.
scales in,
Mhm.
but it did not include a scale house. So we were budgeting enough to put a scale house in, and that's Kent's best estimate. Yeah, the power line will have to, depending on the power issue.
You have money in your budget for that.
No, you just take Brook fishing out the Utah Lake with cement boots. We'll get it funded,
It's not very deep out
but the cement boots will hold him in that silt, I guarantee it.
The two police, these are vehicles, if we fund the two police officers, that would be an unmarked and a marked vehicle to cover those. And you're not gonna see.
No.
I should have broken this up. Now I can't fix it right now, sorry. But with my wonderful eyes,
Power.
yeah, these are all power projects.
And they're all needed.
Look, I can make it big.
Oh, man, how did you do that?
Just went like this.
You went.
There you go.
You went to a different thing though.
No, well, you
No,
probably
just
scroll
with his
down.
fingers.
Scroll, keep scrolling down. Let's see if it works with this right here.
It's moving it.
There you go, you're on the page.
Now make it big again. There you go.
Okay. These are rebuild of engine 2. Brian, you're here if you want to chime in.
That's the engine control panels. They're both obsolete with no parts. So we need to upgrade both those.
And so far, the ones on with the checks are the ones that are currently in the budget, the others are not. But like I say, once we see where we're at with fund balance, stuff like that, there may be a possibility of funding some more of these, or there may be a possibility we might have to take some out. We've got some building improvements, property purchase for a substation, 200,000, upgrade 800 South, 680 West secondary rebuild. Sunnyside Circle rebuild underground. Brian, that's one that needs to be done, right?
Yep.
Uh,
Sunny Hill Circle.
Sunny Hill Circle.
Yeah.
Sunny Hill Circle.
Where's
East side of town.
That's
It's a 40-year-old
Oh,
that's where Mayor Hillman used to live,
oh,
right up in that place there.
The underground line's about 40 years old.
Oh, I thought you meant 800 South.
You've got 405 South, 1000 West upgrade, and I don't know what that means,
That's not
Brian.
funded.
SIPO 12. Resurface the road into the shop.
That one's not on there.
That's not funded yet.
Is there any way funding from the sewer plant could kind of address that?
It's already been taken care of.
Oh,
Oh,
It was part of the 5-year plan. A lot of this stuff was just put in under the 5-year plan.
okay.
okay.
Well, I'm glad you're looking at your 5-year plan and using it. Thank you.
We've got the underground at 1700 West, 85,000. We've got the golf course line to get that out there to finish that annexation.
So on the golf course line, can that be impact fee since it is for?
Not out the golf course. We're gonna-
That's rehab.
Right, but you got Staley going out, I'm not part of for Staley and that's for servicing people out there.
Won't you pull off that line for
Well,
anything
where
up
it's
on
under
Pin
the
Mountain?
Anything that comes, we will.
agreement, I don't know.
Brian, will we service P Mountain off that? Can we service P Mountain off that?
We can't.
So we can recoup our costs on it.
We can charge you a piece.
We'll get impact fees.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got new street lights, city facility lights in here. We've been trying to upgrade the LEDs. We haven't done the whole building yet, but we keep chipping away at it. New distribution circuit on 8 South and more.
That's further around.
Property purchase. for
Property purchase
subsidy.
for subsidies, that was in up above, what? That's in twice, okay.
Oh, sweet, we got 200,000 to play with.
That wasn't funded.
405 South 1000 West upgrade. was
It's
in there
checked.
twice.
It's checked that says it's funded.
Yeah, but I think it's
Oh,
only
it's
funded
under
once in the budget.
Well, yeah, but it is funded.
Right. Cooling tower repair. So yeah, there are a couple of these that are on twice, sorry about
Yeah,
that.
Sunny Hill is.
Cooling tower repair coming out of this year.
Sunny Hill Circle.
Dave,
That-
did
that's
you hear
a-
that?
Yeah,
Power
that's
down
a-
there
yep.
used to fund it.
Oh, that's.
So one thing
okay.
about power is that is where we make money. It's not like sewer and water and all those and roads where it's just a cost. This is actually paid for by the customers, so.
We just stay within our.
This is the sewer. 500 West Depot project upgrade the sewer line under the railroad tracks. Travis, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, it's a concrete line and it's got another hydrogen sulfide issue where it's like we had that collapse a few years ago. So we're hoping that we could just line it because it goes underneath the railroad track and they won't let us open cut it and before it would be extremely expensive and the line's big enough. I think if we lined it, we'd be fine with enough capacity. Right there. We're just trying to get it lined before it has another.
Do you just push another plastic pipe through it or do you just line it with?
What
the
they do is
liner?
they take a liner that's coated in a resin and they blow it into the line, invert it, like it's inverted, they
Yeah.
blow it in, and then they send a UV light through it that cures it. And it has structural support as well as obviously that, and so it works really well. We need to probably do more projects like that, because we have a lot of lines that go behind houses, under houses, you know, in the older areas. And,
The other one that's funded is the CUP. When Central Utah put their big line through, they upgraded some of our facilities and we agreed to pay that back and it's paid over 5 years. So we have to budget for that. The upsize of the 15-inch pipe under I-15 to 27-inch, that's we have a bottleneck.
That's the only one we got going under the freeway.
That's the one
Isn't it?
over.
No, we
No.
have others, but that's the one that's the Elk Ridge line.
Oh,
This is the one that's over by the power plant.
gotcha.
And when Hanson Al Luce modeled the sewer system, he said we're all right on this for a bit. And if we get funding for the new interchange, that's probably a good time to redo that.
Make them do it.
Yeah. them
Make
do
sure
it.
the track co-operator
I don't know if we can,
injures it.
I don't know if we can wait that long, but as of right now, we're okay, according to Hanson Al Luce. But that's on their plan. I gotta go back small before the next one. Water. Where? Can we? You guys see that okay? We're getting quite a few projects done with the ARPA and stuff as far as the water, which is helpful. What's in there is to replace the ERTs on the existing meters. These are meters that are going dead with the batteries are getting to the end of their life. The Spring Lake pumps, that's currently out to bid, right, Travis?
It's already awarded. We're just waiting to get the dredging done and then start construction.
Okay. New meters.
Yes, we can barely kill all of it.
Just don't let that lady.
No,
No.
we're gonna ethically transplant them.
Hey, Jill, I had a great thought while I was out in Oklahoma. Instead of a salmon supper this year, can we have a duck fry?
That really is a great thought.
I was out in Oklahoma. They were having a turtle fry.
Oh.
Oh,
And I said, who come up with that idea? And they said, years ago, there were so many turtles crossing this road that they determined that deep fried turtles, meaning it's a dish out there, would sell it at a overnight dinner. So they have a turtle fry, and I thought, light come on, and went duck fry.
it's the free beers.
I think that's a faulty light.
They're well fed.
Is that what Carl says? You offer free beer and they come to eat.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
There's upsizing 4,300 feet of pipe and 100 south. The 12-inch provide transmission capacity to the eastern area of the upper city zone, right, Travis? Is that
Which one was that, Dave? The 4,300 feet?
the,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that one is currently, we've awarded that one also. That is so that, right now, if we don't do that project, like over there by South Haven, if you go south towards, the mouth of the canyon,
Mhm.
the residents will only have like 17 PSI on their pressure irrigation system, so
Fine,
That's why
then
we're-
they'll be like me.
I'm trying to fix that problem.
we've got the spring,
They still got 2 more pounds than I get.
we have the Spring Lake Pump House rebuild. The Salem City, Payson City drinking water cross connection. We're trying to get cross connected with their culinary water in case there's emergencies for either city.
I got a question on the new meters for new construction.
So,
Aren't the people that building the houses doing the meters?
yeah, so what that is, we have to
It
buy,
comes back,
the meters and then we get it
and
reimbursed
then we
back.
get reimbursed.
Right, so there really is no cost.
No.
On that one,
No,
right?
But Cameron just needs it in the budget.
Just, yeah.
Like if we have to buy a 2-inch meter, they're like $3,000 just for the meter. And so he has to buy them and then obviously we get reimbursed as they install.
So we have a revenue source to
Yeah.
offset that.
That includes your PI meters too, right?
It creates us an inventory.
Yeah, it's.
'Cause when I did
PI
the-
and culinary.
When I did the PI meter, they made me pay for it, but you guys.
Because
already
right
had it.
now, where we've switched to census, all of the meters are census, so we just buy the same one, we just do 1-inch meters like have a regular house, and then it can go on either one.
The same CUP Spanish Fork Santa Quinn, that's the payback of what Central Utah put in for us. And then the bottom was the same thing, the upsizing of the 21-inch line from the water tanks. This part's being paid out of impact fees, the rest are out of the ARPA funding. So a lot of good projects being done there. So far, they're all in. Storm drain, the same thing, the Spanish Fork, the CUP payback for the storm drain stuff they put in. There's a 500 South CDBG project. That's the one that's not funded that we talked about. There's a 400 North project for 60,000 extend. Okay, and those are the 3 storm
That
drains.
should be 300 more.
Is that 300 North where you're at?
No,
Vehicle maintenance, what they would like to do, and none of these are funded yet. In fact, we talked about the storage tanks, but with some of the bigger trucks they work on, the pit, the oil pit's not big enough. And Anthony kind of said what they had to do. They had to kind of crawl under. It's not a very safe thing. You either have to get in there and then drive over it, or you have to scoot under like that. So extending the pit so it fits the bigger trucks, that's one of their projects they would like to see funded. And then,
that seems cheap to do that.
yeah,
At today's price.
at today's price. The other one is to get back to where we have our own storage tanks and gas, one for diesel and one for
Above ground.
above ground. As we talked about that with Anthony, though, that's the estimate to get all the equipment and stuff, but we talked about needing to put like a electronic gate so that, it's got to be safe there, and, you have to have a card to use the gas and stuff like that, but also to get into the shop area there, we'd probably need to get a nicer gate. And then we'd have to also put a wall around the tanks. So this is just for the equipment. It'd probably be another $200,000-300,000 to finish it out. So we talked about maybe keeping that on the 5-year plan, but maybe try to do that in another year.
How much can we save wholesale, retail?
Anthony says you save about 40 cents a gallon.
So somebody ought to
If
look
you
at the
buy in
numbers
bulk.
and see how
How
fast
much
that
do we
paid.
spend a year?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think he said we're spending like 80,000 a month.
yeah.
80,000, but how much do we save them?
10% then.
So 8,000, 8 times 12. It'd take a while to pay that if you did 500 or 600,000. It'd take quite a few years to pay that back.
When I first started here, they just went away from having our own tanks. I don't know when they made that decision, but looking at emergencies that could happen, it'd be best to have our own tanks. I mean, if you have an even Anthony brought up, remember last year, the year before, when there was an earthquake, and all of a sudden everybody was running to the gas pumps and if we really had a real emergency like that and we're have to wait in line for our city equipment to try to go out and help people.
Or our police cars.
Or our police cars, so
I mean, when they have rolling blackouts this summer, probably power up them pumps.
yeah.
I thought that's why we had those big generators, so we didn't have the rolling blackout.
Building
We'll
maintenance
get
is,
all of the town.
building maintenance is to do the roofs on the fire, library, and keep neat. The pool, refurbish the bridge, paint the play features. We try to do some every year to keep those up, and then paint the slide columns.
The last couple columns. Oh, I thought they'd already painted them all. It looked really nice.
Tower.
We did the tower.
We have a couple columns.
Oh,
And these are small projects here in the budget amendment next week. There's one of the
Water heaters.
one of the water heaters has gone out. The other one is getting close. So we're trying to do that on a budget amendment, get it in before the pool opens.
Probably need to get
We can have cold pools.
those poles inspected. We did. I mean, we had Sean.
Anyway, that's all the projects, and you can see there's a lot of projects getting done. It's great.
Let's take the bet to see.
Did I miss one?
Well,
No, but last year we
going
talked
to
about
town.
buying the land for the park with the impact fees, and I didn't put it in here. 'Cause it's in there.
Has he got everything figured out there? Is it still
The
got
impact
open paths?
fees, purchasing the park with west 30 to 40 acres.
But maybe a little bit of construction shows.
Okay.
Next major
Progress.
park.
and Somebody will
I
move.
can't add it in here, but.
No, but
I think the construction is. They gotta move that one.
So those are the projects. The other thing I just wanted to go over is and I don't know if we need to spend a lot of time here. We several years ago, we started the revolving loan fund and tried to keep up on the equipment, and then the departments would pay that back. We found, so a lot of some of these are, we call it in and out. We're trying to turn these vehicles in after 1 or 2 years. And, Anthony said that he's been here about 2 years, and he said the ones that they're buying like a truck for 43,000 on the state bid, and after 2 years of driving it, we're selling for about 53. So that's a good thing to do that. So some of these are just in and out. We're trying to
200 a year. Yeah,
I-
can we do it every month?
Can we do the whole
Sounds like a
thing?
funding source to me.
We don't want the state to come and.
There's a person in Juab that was doing that, that's going to jail.
Oh, really?
Let's just do it as.
Don't make those comments.
So none of those are funded.
Well, right here,
The bottom one is. Oh.
We haven't been with this very much.
this one is really rough because we have some funded, but we need to see the amount of revolving loan money we have and then see what we can do. So there'll be quite a few more
well, can you
funded on
get
this.
these vehicles?
But here's some of the requests, like the fire extrication equipment, a side-by-side, a new engine truck, which that's probably his highest priority. But that's the big cost too. We can't use impact fees with that.
We better get ahead of Spanish Fork and get one built.
We gotta pay to build it.
That's a joke.
Yeah, after it got wrecked. And then another brush truck. We've got a brush truck ordered. He wants to have another one, but the one brush truck we do have ordered, it's been a year and a half.
Since we ordered it.
The water tender.
The water tender's a year and a half.
Yeah, we'll have that finally in May.
What do they make out here on American Way?
They refurbish. It is.
Yeah, we have two F-550s that are been ordered since July. We still don't know when they're going.
That's where we found the 550s.
Yeah.
Mhm.
IT is looking for 2 new copiers. If you look at the landfill, their link built out there is really old. Well, I don't know how old it is, 2002. So he'd like to look at leasing a new.
It gets
getting a new-
used pretty
It
heavy.
does get used a lot. A replacement of a truck, another collection truck, which I think Kent said we don't need that this year, but he monitors it if we get how many new homes and how many are added to the route. That sparks when we need a new truck and a new driver.
These roads out there are awful.
Yeah.
Oh, in the land.
Well, if we
Yes.
put, inside the landfill.
Yes.
The landfill.
Oh, they're They're horrible.
Okay,
We need a turn lane up there for the landfill as well.
Street light.
the
Yeah,
power's got a
streetlight,
wire
just a
puller,
turn.
and is that in this budget?
Yes.
I think that's taken care of. Upgrade the sewer camera van.
We have chipper in the sewer.
The cemetery's looking at a 1-ton dump truck. These are some that are funded, some mow equipment at the golf course. Replace the, that's an in and out. These next two are replacing fairly new trucks on that replacement schedule. I'm just trying to see which ones to highlight. There's park wrecks and golf. Those are all in and out, just being rotated. The Parks is looking for a bobtail truck, 250,000. There's a mini excavator and a replacement truck. Those haven't been funded yet. Power department replaced one of the vehicles. I think Brian said that was already done, right?
Yeah, we replaced that under the lemon law.
There's a bucket truck. They're looking for
Transmission ran 3 times.
a derrick digger. A new line truck, pretty pricey one. And then
And that's a 2-year lead time on that, so.
Okay.
And that needs to be 300,000.
well, the one down below it says new line. Oh, you're looking at the derrick digger. Is that, what's the one, the new line truck down below that? 2 down from it. One's 250, one's 326.
Yeah, it's the new line truck.
Anyway, these are just some of the requests for vehicles, and we can't fund them all, but we can fund some of with that revolving loan fund. Wow, you see, there's just a lot of.
Wow.
The last thing here is just rates, truth, and taxation. I didn't put anything in here except just to make sure we did notify the county. We were looking at doing a truth and taxation hearing. We've done that for probably the last 6 or 7 years, except for the COVID year. And we just look at it, have a public hearing, and most of the time you just kept the tax rate the same. One time we bumped it up a little.
Last year we did.
So if that's something we're still doing, we've got that in the plan to do that. And then we've got to come to you maybe at one of these work sessions about rates. You know, do we do the CPI index for most of the utility rates? The sewer rate's going to take a big jump with the sewer plant upgrade. We'll have to discuss that.
I realize we're gonna hit, but the only thing that I have to say about the budget, and I'm just gonna be as truthful as I can. I would like every one of our department heads to scratch their heads and find a way to drive rate, to drive revenue. One way or another, be creative, be whatever, and come back to you, come back to us in another work session. I don't care if it's driving the impact fees of storm drain, storm drain, we're as much as $10 a month below other cities. I don't care if it's an impact fee on sewer, water, all of that I think needs to be on the table that we can look at, including just our flat building permit fee for the planning department. I think that water and sewer needs to look at how they can drive rate creatively. Parks department, the same way. There's some way that we can drive a revenue source. There's always a way. And every little bit will help fund something that we can't budget for this year. Or maybe we can if we get these implemented. I would rather go to the citizens and say, we've sat on this for 3 or 4 years. And now you see what inflation's done. We're behind the 8 ball big time.
Yeah, we gotta buy gas too.
Yep.
right?
So I think if we ever had an opportunity as a council to do something as far as rates, and I know sewer's gonna just absolutely kill people.
Yeah.
But the inflation factor plays into every department head budget that we have. Every one of them, including a 7% employee wage, or we're gonna lose them to other cities. So my business is going to every one of my properties and beating them down on creative ways of driving revenue, of driving some way creatively that think out of the box, do whatever you can to help increase the budget that you can fund these projects, Dave. I think if everybody looks at it honestly and takes some time and thinks out of the box, we could come up with, I think the storm drain itself, if we raise that $10 a month, right now it's, I think we're $670 a month. Pleasant Grove's $1572, American Fork 16 something. I don't want to scare people to death, but I also don't want to have to keep taking from fund balances just to, and we're poor
balance
Payson
our
again.
budget.
Yeah, just to balance our budget. You guys, we can be creative in driving rate. I don't care what it is. There's something that we can do to drive another revenue source. I don't think we need to go out and stand on the street and sell hot dogs and that, but I think
was gonna
there's places.
suggest fried duck.
Fried duck. That's the only thing I want to say about the budget. I know we need to fund a lot of these things. And if we fall behind and don't fund them, even during the inflation times, we're going to be so far behind the 8 ball in a few years that.
Which has happened before.
We already
has.
are, right, Travis?
We really,
It's happened.
but the most important thing that I will say in all that I just said in driving it, I will always say, I want to fund the employees before I fund anything. If we can keep our employees here happy and wanting to help us solve these problems, we'll figure out a way to pay for the other problems.
I agree.
That's all I have to say.
Okay. Anybody else have any things on budget? Any ideas? Any department heads, supervisors? Department heads, we'll have a 7:30 meeting in the morning.
It's gonna have to be quick because my budget.
Is it at 8? Well, maybe we won't do one. I was gonna say we could recap this, but we'll do it another time.
Monday at 8.
We'll do it.
Where are you going for spring break?
No, we'll have to, but I don't have to go to DRC.
Oh. All right, yeah, scratch the one at 7:30 in the morning, because we have some budget meetings started, but
5:30 works.
5:30 works for me. I was up at 3 this morning.
Can I make a motion?
Make a motion.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks for being here. Take some pizza.